Just as Jason and Clara were about to look for the matriarch, two of her aides approached them. Spotting the couple, they bowed respectfully. "Ma'am, sir, the matriarch has arranged everything for you. Please go right in." Clara frowned slightly. "Isn't my grandmother here?" The aide smiled. "The matriarch is on the estate grounds. She asked that you and Mr. Miller go in first and get settled. She will join you shortly." Elsewhere on the property, the matriarch sat across from Dr. Luo, her expression a complex mixture of excitement and anxiety. She wrung her hands, her voice tight with urgency. "Dr. Luo, are you absolutely certain this will neutralize the cryotoxin in Clara's system?" Dr. Luo looked exhausted, his eyes webbed with red veins, but his nod was firm. "Yes, matriarch. I've spent months researching this. To counteract the cryotoxin, we need to induce a specific physiological response, one that involves extreme heat and circulatory stimulation. Intimacy is the key, but given Clara's weakened state, the strain could be dangerous. Conducting the treatment in the mineral hot springs, however, mitigates that risk. It's the best, and frankly, the only method we have." Hearing that this was the only way, the matriarch pushed down her worries. She looked at Dr. Luo, hesitating. "Are there any side effects?" He offered a reassuring smile. "None whatsoever, I assure you." A wave of relief washed over the old woman. After thanking him profusely, she hurried off to find Clara. Meanwhile, Clara and Jason stepped through the main doors of the Serenity Springs Resort. Several staff members immediately greeted them, warmly directing them toward the changing rooms. Jason's gaze fell on the slight curve of Clara's belly, a flicker of concern in his eyes. He turned to a staff member. "Could you please assist my wife? She's pregnant, and these floors look slippery." "Of course, sir," the attendant replied quickly. "You're very considerate." A faint smile touched Jason's lips, but he said nothing more. The lingering resentment Clara felt toward him began to soften at the edges. Seeing him so carefully instructing the staff stirred something inside her. An attendant gently guided Clara toward the women's changing room. Jason walked with her all the way to the door before turning to head to the men's. Across the grounds, Brooklyn's car screeched to a halt outside the resort. She saw Clara's sedan and her bodyguards, and her heart sank. Just as she'd feared, the main entrance was closed off. Clara had booked the entire place. A wave of frustration washed over her, but she wasn't giving up. Her hands tightened on the steering wheel, refusing to be turned away. Then, her eyes landed on the resort's stone wall. It wasn't terribly high. An idea sparked. She could climb it. But the thought of her pregnancy gave her pause. She wasn't sure she could scale a wall as easily as she used to. The baby needed her protection. She couldn't risk it. Brooke paced by her car, her mind at war with itself. Finally, she decided to try. She slipped over to a corner of the wall, took a deep breath, and gently patted her stomach. "Okay, baby," she whispered, as if to rally herself. "Mommy knows you'll help me, right? We're going to find Daddy together. You're going to give me strength." With that, she began to climb. Her body was still light in the early stages of pregnancy, and the wall wasn't that high. She made it to the top, swung her legs over, and landed softly on the other side. A triumphant grin spread across her face. She couldn't believe how easily she'd gotten in. But as she glanced back toward the road, her smile froze. Bianca Sterling's convertible was pulling up. Brooke's internal alarm bell screamed. That little green tea was definitely here for Jason, too. There was no way Brooke was letting Bianca get to him first. Without another second's hesitation, she began to move, slipping through the manicured grounds, desperate to find him. Meanwhile, Bianca had also noted the private booking. The front gate was a no-go, so she looked for another way. A quick survey revealed a corner of the wall with fresh scuff marks. She let out a quiet, contemptuous laugh. Clumsy. Only Brooke would try something so graceless. A smirk played on her lips. A moment later, she effortlessly located the staff entrance, slipping through without so much as getting her shoes wet. Thinking of Brooke's brutish approach, a sharp pang of jealousy hit her. I really don't get what my brother sees in her. So, she has a slightly better figure than me. Is that it? The more she thought, the more indignant she became. That old woman must have used some kind of trick to get him so hooked. She'd have to investigate later, figure out what Brooke's secret was. If Brooke could do it, she could do it better. This wasn't imitation, it was improvement. With that thought, Bianca set off into the resort, unaware that the path she had chosen, the staff corridor, led far from where Jason was. Brooke, on the other hand, had stumbled by sheer luck into the area near the men's hot spring changing rooms. She didn't know Jason was inside, but she slipped into the locker room, hoping to find a staff uniform to use as a disguise. The moment she stepped inside, she heard a familiar voice. Jason was standing there, holding a pair of swim trunks with a grimace. What is this thing? It's designed like a pair of board shorts from hell. It's impossible to get into. As he grumbled, he heard a surprised shriek from behind him. Babe! Startled, he spun around just as Brooke launched herself into his arms like an ecstatic bird. What are you doing here? He asked, shocked. Brooke clung to him, afraid he might vanish. I've been looking for you everywhere. Are you okay? Are you hurt? Did that Clara woman do anything to you? The barrage of questions left him dizzy. He steadied himself. I'm fine, don't worry. She relaxed slightly, but still looked concerned. Then why didn't you leave with Kenzie? She was there to get you out. Jason sighed wearily. I couldn't leave. I'm still legally married to Clara. Her health is fragile, and she's over 6 months pregnant. I have to stay until the babies are born. At his words, Brooke's eyes instantly reddened, welling with tears. Then what about me? She choked out. Seeing her so heartbroken twisted something in his gut. He opened his mouth to say something, but the words wouldn't come. Just then, Clara's voice came from outside his changing room door. She had finished changing into her swimsuit. Jason, are you ready? What's taking so long? Hearing her, Jason tensed. He called out, almost done. Be right out. His voice was rushed, afraid she'd get impatient. He quickly loosened Brooke's grip. You have to go, Brooke. We can talk later. I have to get out there before she finds you. But Brooke refused to let go. Her eyes brimming with tears, she tightened her hold on his hand, her voice turning into a pouting whine. I don't want you to go. You have to give me a timeline. How long do I have to wait? Why is Clara so possessive? Why does she get to have you all to herself? Can't I even see you for a second? Geese on sight. He understood her pain, but he was trapped. Please, don't make a scene, he pleaded softly. I promise, once Liana and Lila are born, I will sort this out. But I really have to go now. The dam of Brooke's emotions burst. Tears streamed down her face like broken pearls. But I miss you so much, she sobbed. The baby and I, we miss you so much. Outside, Clara heard the strange muffled sounds. Suspicion crept into her voice. Jason, what are you doing in there? Why is it taking so long? Before he could answer, the doorknob began to turn. Panic seized Jason. He quickly clamped a hand over Brooke's mouth. Stop crying, he hissed. She'll hear you. But being muffled only made her sobs more frantic. MMPH. MMPH. She slapped at his chest, trying to push him away. Left with no other choice, Jason did the only thing he could think of to silence her. He crashed his lips against hers, sealing her protests with a desperate, passionate kiss. Brooke froze, stunned by the sudden kiss. Her body went rigid, her sobs instantly silenced. For a brief moment, she was completely lost in his embrace, forgetting everything else. Clara's voice from outside grew colder, laced with impatience. Jason, what in the world are you doing? The door was about to open. Jason, in a blind panic, looked for a place to hide. But just as the door began to creak open, another voice cut through the tension. Clara, dear, what are you doing? The matriarch's sudden appearance instantly diverted Clara's attention. The old woman walked up behind her granddaughter. Clara's expression softened slightly. Grandma, you're finally here. Jason's been in there changing for ages. I was worried something might have happened to him. The matriarch chuckled. He's a grown man. What could happen? Perhaps the swimsuit doesn't fit. Inside, Jason heard his lifeline and breathed a silent sigh of relief. He quickly called through the door. Yes, that's it. Grandma's right, this suit is a bit small. Honey, could you ask an attendant to bring me a larger size? Clara's brow furrowed, not entirely convinced. But with her grandmother there, she couldn't press the issue. Fine, she conceded. Wait there. I'll go find someone. As Clara's footsteps faded away, Jason held his breath. Finally, when he was sure she was gone, he slowly released Brooke. Brooke was still dazed from the kiss, leaning limply against his chest. Her cheeks were a deep crimson. What? What was that? She stammered, flustered. Why did you cover my mouth? And who? Who said you could kiss me? Lost in the moment, she hadn't even heard Clara outside. A playful smirk touched Jason's lips. What? You didn't like it? I can stop, you know. He made a show of pushing her away. Brooke panicked, grabbing his shirt. I never said you had to stop. It's just, you should have given me some warning. Clara's right outside. You're not embarrassed, but I am. Jason looked at Brooke's flustered, adorable expression and felt a stir of affection. He gently cupped her face. All right, stop fooling around. You've had your kiss. I have to get out there, or we're really going to get caught. Though she didn't want to let him go, Brooke knew he was right. She hugged him tightly one last time. You'd better be thinking of me, she murmured. And you'd better text me, or the baby, and I will ignore you forever. Jason chuckled, a hint of resignation in his voice. Okay. I'll think of you, I promise. Satisfied, Brooke finally let him go, her eyes lingering on his back as he left the changing room, a look so intense it could have melted him on the spot. A few moments later, Jason emerged in his swimsuit. His tall, athletic frame was well-defined, the fabric clinging to his muscular physique. Clara had just returned to the poolside, and her eyes fell on him, a flicker of confusion in her gaze. "I thought you said your swimsuit was too small," she said. A faint blush colored Jason's cheeks. I made it work. It's fine." Clara clearly wasn't satisfied with his explanation, her brow knitting with suspicion. Just then, the matriarch approached, taking Clara's arm with a smile. "Clara, dear, there's something I need to tell you." Clara turned to her grandmother. "What is it?" "Right now?" The matriarch glanced at Jason. With Jason here, the timing is perfect. Jason's curiosity was piqued. "Grandma, what's going on?" The old woman's face beamed with joy. "Dr. Luo was just here. He's found a way to neutralize the cryotoxin in Clara's system." Jason and Clara's faces lit up. "Really?" they asked in unison. "What is it?" The matriarch smiled mysteriously. "Dr. Luo said the treatment involves physical intimacy. He was worried before that the method would be too intense for Clara's body to handle. But now, he's assured me that if you conduct the treatment in the hot springs, there won't be any problems at all." Jason and Clara exchanged a stunned look. Clara's cheeks flushed. "Grandma, can we really do that?" She had just forced Jason to get a vasectomy. "This probably wouldn't work." "Why not?" the matriarch declared with righteous conviction. "You're already here at the resort. This is a golden opportunity. We can finally get rid of that toxin for good. Besides, I've already arranged it with Dr. Luo. He's waiting upstairs. As soon as you're finished, he can come down and check Clara's pulse, see how it went. If there are any complications, he can handle them immediately." The matriarch's words hit Brooke, hiding in the changing room, like a thunderbolt. She had heard every word, her heart seizing at the part about Clara and Jason having sex. A furious jealousy surged through her. She couldn't believe the old woman was so blatantly ordering them to sleep together. She bit her lip so hard she tasted blood, fighting the urge to storm out and shut the old woman up. But her rational mind knew that if she revealed herself, it would only create a bigger mess for Jason. Outside, Clara and Jason were just as stunned. They looked at each other, the same question in their eyes. Was it even safe to do that during pregnancy? The matriarch was baffled by their hesitation. "You don't know?" she asked, wide-eyed. "Am I an old-fashioned prude? Or are you two just ridiculously conservative? Of course you can do that while pregnant. Do you think couples just abstain for 10 whole months? Could you really stand it?" Clara and Jason's faces turned scarlet. They never imagined the matriarch would be so frank. It was shocking how much more open-minded she was than them. Seemingly oblivious to their embarrassment, she continued, "Don't you worry. Dr. Luo is just upstairs. If anything feels wrong, he's right there." She finished with a knowing, mischievous smile. Clara and Jason looked at each other, their faces flushed. After a moment of silence, Clara spoke first. "Well, all right, we can try. But if it doesn't feel right, we'll wait until after Liana and Lila are born." She shot Jason a meaningful look. Her grandmother didn't know about the vasectomy, and she didn't want her to. This was just a way to placate her. Jason quickly nodded in agreement. The matriarch's lips curved into a sly smile. "Whether it works or not isn't up to you," she thought. "My only job was to tell you it's safe during pregnancy. As for the rest, haha, I've already arranged everything for today. If you two can resist, then I'll admit I'm not as clever as I think." Inside the changing room, Brooke heard Jason agree to sleep with Clara and felt a surge of panic. She was about to burst out and stop them when a hand clamped down over her mouth from behind. She spun around in shock to see Bianca. "Don't be an idiot," Bianca hissed, her eyes serious. "Going out there will only make things worse. If you want my aunt to find you and have you thrown out, be my guest." Though she bristled at Bianca's tone, Brooke knew she was right. In her current state, she couldn't change anything by storming out. She swallowed her pride. "Then what do you suggest we do? Just stand here and watch? At least I was trying to do something. You're doing nothing, so what right do you have to judge me?" "Who said I'm not doing anything?" Brooke's eyes widened with a flicker of hope. "What's your plan?" Bianca didn't answer immediately. Instead, she crept to the door and peered through the crack, watching Jason and Clara. She lowered her voice. "We don't make a move yet. We follow them and see what happens." Brooke considered it. It was better than nothing. She nodded. Outside, the matriarch smiled. "All right, I've said my piece. Everything else is arranged. You two just go on in and don't worry about a thing." Clara and Jason nodded, said their goodbyes, and walked toward the hot spring area. When they arrived, they were stunned. The matriarch had prepared a private, open-air couples pool for them, nestled among elegant, traditional architecture and natural landscaping. The pool was filled with warm spring water, and rose petals floated on the surface, releasing a fragrant, romantic scent. It was perfectly secluded. Clara was more than satisfied. She dropped her robe, revealing the red one-piece swimsuit she wore underneath. Even pregnant, her figure was stunning, and combined with her exquisite face, she looked like a goddess. She stepped slowly into the pool, steam swirling around her. Jason watched her, and a jolt of heat went through him. He forced himself to stay silent, following her into the water. They sat side by side, the warm water enveloping them. The atmosphere hung between awkward and intimate. After a few minutes, Clara started to wonder, where the staff? She had specifically told Ava to arrange for masseuses. Jason felt it too. The water felt strange. It was making him a little dizzy, and the scent from the oil diffuser. It was familiar, but he couldn't place it. Seeing Clara's frown, he felt a pang of guilt and offered, "You want me to give you a massage?" Clara eyed him skeptically. "Can you?" "I could try," he said quickly. "I work part-time at one of those places for a summer job once." Her lip twitched in amusement. "One of those places?" "Hey, I was trying to make money," he said with a dry laugh. He gently placed his hands on her shoulders and began to knead the muscles. His fingers worked softly over her skin, each movement perfectly placed, making her feel a wave of unprecedented relaxation. Her skin was like silk, smooth and flawless. The moment his hands touched her, it was like an electric shock, sending heat through his entire body. His heart began to pound. As he continued the massage, he found it harder and harder to concentrate. His gaze was drawn to her, her beauty magnified in the swirling steam. Every subtle expression, every small movement was captivating. His breathing grew ragged, his body burning as if on fire. He felt an overwhelming urge to pull her closer, to feel her warmth, to kiss her cherry-red lips. Clara felt it too, an unusual heat spreading through her. Her breath hitched, her chest fluttering like a trapped bird. Every touch from Jason sent a shiver through her, a feeling both strange and intoxicating. Her voice grew husky. "What's wrong with me? I feel so dizzy." Her mind felt hazy, lost in the bizarre sensation. Her body grew hotter, her thoughts cloudier. She found herself moving closer to Jason, drawn by an invisible force. "It's so hot," she murmured, her hands moving to unfasten her swimsuit. Jason grabbed her hands. "Don't," he said, his voice strained. "We're not inside." But Clara seemed to have lost all reason. She pulled her hands free and grew more insistent. The scent from the diffuser was thick in the air, making Jason's head swim. Just then, unable to bear the heat any longer, Clara lunged at him, pressing a feverish kiss to his lips. Caught off guard, Jason was momentarily stunned, but the touch ignited him, and he responded instinctively, his own passion flaring to meet hers. Their lips locked, their breaths mingling in the steamy air. Clara's hands roamed over his body, exploring the hard planes of his chest. Meanwhile, in her office, a dark cloud hung over Zoe Sue. Her subordinates stood before her. Miss Sue, Clara Sterling, and Jason Miller went to the Serenity Springs Resort. From what we can tell, Clara is still unaware that Brooklyn is pregnant. Hearing this, Zoe's expression darkened further. How could Clara be so magnanimous? She'd seen Jason and Brooke kissing passionately on the beach and done nothing. What was even more infuriating was Vivien, her own adopted sister, repeatedly sabotaging her plans and remaining close to Jason. The more Zoe thought about it, the angrier she became. Vivien was a thankless traitor. Even if they weren't blood, her parents had raised Vivien as their own. Now, after Clara and Jason had caused their deaths, Vivien wasn't seeking revenge. She was helping Jason. It was unforgivable. A murderous rage boiled inside her. "The operatives my parents planted with Vivien are still active, aren't they?" she asked, her voice dangerously low. The subordinate's face paled. "One is dead. 2 remain." A cold smile touched Zoe's lips. "Good. Arrange for one of them to kill Jason and Clara." Vivien had eaten at her family's table. It was time she paid the price. "But miss," the man hesitated, "just one operative won't be enough to kill them both." Zoe laughed, a chilling, cunning sound. "I don't need them killed. I know one man isn't enough. But this way, the blame will fall squarely on Vivien. It will sever the bond between her and Jason. Then she would see just how strong their precious relationship really was." Back at the resort, Brooke and Bianca, hiding behind a large cypress tree, watched the scene in the hot spring unfold. Brooke's eyes widened in disbelief as Jason and Clara kissed, a fierce jealousy turning her vision red. Bianca's reaction was no better. She was seething, her gaze locked on Jason, wishing she could tear Clara away and take her place. Just as Brooke was about to lose control and storm out, Bianca grabbed her, clamping a hand over her mouth to stifle any sound. Brooke struggled for a moment but was pulled back. She was about to unleash a torrent of abuse on Bianca when she turned and saw something that made her freeze. Sprite and Kinsey were hiding behind another nearby tree, staring intently at the passionate scene in the water. The two pairs of spies spotted each other at the same time. The air crackled with awkwardness. Brooke was the first to break the silence, her voice a furious whisper. "What are you two doing here? Spying on Jason while he's bathing? Have you no shame?" Kinsey and Sprite were already blushing from embarrassment, and Brooke's accusation was the last straw. What right did she have? It was the pot calling the kettle black. Kinsey drew herself up, refusing to back down. "Who's shameless? You're doing the exact same thing. And besides, I'm a doctor. I'm here for Jason's health. What's your excuse?" Yeah, Sprite chimed in. Brooke was so angry she could have screamed. "That's ridiculous. Jason and I are a couple. It's not the same for you." Sprite faltered, looking at Kinsey. "Oh, she has a point. I don't think we have the moral high ground here." She did feel a little bad about spying on Jason, even if they had grown up together. Kinsey, however, was unfazed. "A couple? Says who? He's Clara Sterling's husband right now. What does that have to do with you? And I told you, this is a matter of medical ethics. Perfectly justifiable." They were about to start a full-blown argument when Bianca rolled her eyes, completely over the drama. But as she scanned the area, her sharp eyes caught a flicker of movement in the shadows. A jolt of unease shot through her. Someone was stalking Jason. Without thinking, she clapped her hands over Brooke's and Kinsey's mouths. "Shut up," she hissed, her voice low and urgent. "Someone's coming." The two women, startled by her tone, fell silent. They followed Bianca's gaze back toward the pool. Just then, a dark figure slipped out of the shadows like a ghost, moving silently toward the hot spring. The figure was swift and sure-footed, making no sound. The shadow crept closer to the pool, where Jason and Clara were still lost in their kiss, oblivious to the approaching danger. When the figure was just a few feet away, it stopped, drew a pistol, and took aim. In that split second, Jason must have sensed something. His eyes snapped open. In his arms, Clara stirred, startled by his sudden movement. But it was too late. The shadow pulled the trigger. The gunshot echoed in the night. In a flash of pure instinct, Jason twisted his body, shielding Clara with his own as the bullet whizzed past them. The assassin, seeing the missed shot, knew the game was up and turned to flee. A murderous look crossed Jason's face. "Guards," he roared, his voice tearing through the quiet resort. "Get him!" In an instant, Ava and a team of highly trained security personnel materialized, moving like lightning to tackle the gunman, pinning him to the ground. Jason grabbed a towel and rushed to Clara, who was still dazed, her face flushed and her mind clouded from the drugged incense. He wrapped her tightly in the towel and gently lifted her out of the water. "Are you all right?" he asked urgently. It took Clara a moment to process the chaos. What just happened?" she murmured, looking around in confusion. "My head is spinning. And that man with the gun." Jason followed her gaze to the still smoldering oil diffuser. The answer hit him. He strode over and smothered the flame. "It was this," he said, his face grim. "It has to be. I knew it smelled strange. It was an aphrodisiac." Clara stared at the diffuser. It looked ordinary, but a closer sniff revealed a strange, cloying undertone. "Did Grandma prepare this?" she asked, frowning. She sighed. Her grandmother's meddling was getting out of hand, but she knew it came from a good place. She hadn't told her about Jason's surgery, so of course the matriarch would try something like this. Now her knowing smile made perfect sense. Ava dragged the captured assassin before them. Clara, wrapped in a robe, approached him, her expression glacial. "Who sent you?" she demanded. The man remained silent, glaring at her with pure hatred. Jason stepped closer, studying the man's face. He looked familiar. After a moment, it clicked. This was one of Vivien's men. He realized this was far more complicated than a simple assassination attempt. "You work for Vivien, don't you?" Jason's voice was cold. "What are you doing here?" The assassin sneered, defiant. "I'm not telling you anything. You betrayed our miss, and now you're here fooling around with Clara Sterling. How can you live with yourself?" Clara's face darkened with rage. "How dare you? Jason and I are husband and wife. We're protected by the law. What are you?" Jason's own anger flared. The man's stubbornness, his invocation of Vivien's name, pushed him over the edge. He gave Ava a sharp, subtle nod. Ava understood immediately. She hauled the man up as if he were a sack of potatoes and dragged him away. A moment later, a series of blood-curdling screams echoed from beyond the pool area. Jason ignored them. He turned back to Clara, his expression softening instantly. "Are you okay, honey? Let's get back to the room and change. You don't want to catch a cold." Clara, moved by his gentle tone, nodded, and they went inside. From the nearby trees, Brooke, Bianca, Kinsey, and Sprite watched them go. Once the coast was clear, they crept over to where Ava was dealing with the assassin. Ava stood over the man, a knife glinting in the moonlight. Her patience had worn thin. As she raised the knife for a fourth time, the man finally broke. "It was Vivien," he gasped. Vivien saw that Clara was pregnant and knew the boss would never come back to her. "She was jealous, so she sent me to kill Clara's babies." Ava frowned, her eyes filled with disbelief. "Are you sure?" she growled. "If you're lying, I'll make you wish you were dead." The man flinched but stuck to his story, his eyes darting away for a second before he gritted his teeth. "I'm sure. Vivien ordered me to do it." Knowing she wouldn't get anything more out of him, Ava sighed and had her men secure him. She then turned to report back to Jason and Clara. The four women hiding in the shadows had witnessed the entire exchange, their faces etched with disbelief. "Vivien ordered this?" As she lost her mind, Brooke was the first to speak. Bianca shook her head, her mind working coolly. "It's not that simple. My brother values those babies more than anything. If something happened to them, would he really go back to Vivien? No, he'd hate her even more." Kinsey and Sprite nodded in agreement. "I don't think Vivien would do something like this either," Kinsey said. "There has to be a misunderstanding." Meanwhile, Ava had entered the room and relayed the assassin's confession to Jason and Clara. Clara's face turned to ice. "Impossible," she said without hesitation. "Vivien is not that stupid." Jason's expression was equally grave. "I agree," he said, his voice low and firm. "She would never do something like this." Though he knew Vivien had changed since going abroad, Jason's long history with her, the trust they had shared, made him certain of one thing. She would never harm an innocent child. She, too, had once carried a child. He had seen firsthand how much she'd wanted to be a mother. Besides, Vivien had already confessed her past mistakes to him long ago, and her sincerity had been palpable. He couldn't believe she was capable of such cruelty. Clara felt the same. Vivien was neither foolish enough to use such a clumsy tactic, nor vile enough to target a baby. So who's behind this? Just as they were pondering this, one of Clara's guards burst into the room. "Ma'am, sir, it's bad. The assassin. He's dead." The news hit them like a physical blow. Their best hope of uncovering the truth was gone. Clara's voice was dangerously cold. "What happened?" "I told you to watch him." The guard trembled. He took poison. It was suicide." Clara and Jason exchanged a look of grim frustration. Jason waved the guards away. "It looks like we'll have to find another lead," he said with a sigh. But a seed of doubt had been planted in Clara's mind. Though she generally had a good impression of Vivien, the fact remained that Vivien had loved Jason for years. They were rivals. For a moment, she allowed herself to wonder. She looked at Jason. "Honey, what do you really think? Could Vivien have?" Jason understood her fear immediately. "I don't think she would," he said gently. "But to put your mind at ease, I'll call her. I'll ask her to come here." He dialed Vivien's number. A moment later, her warm voice came through the line. "Jason? What's wrong?" Vivien's heart leaped. She couldn't believe he was calling. Had he finally come to his senses? Was he ready to reconcile? "Jason," she asked, her voice trembling with hope, "have you changed your mind?" Jason winced, stealing a glance at Clara. "It's not about that," he said awkwardly. Someone took a shot at us." "What?" Vivien cried out. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine, but—" He hesitated. "The gunman, he said you sent him. So, you should probably come over." The word struck Vivien like lightning. She couldn't believe someone would frame her like this. "That's impossible. I would never do that." "Jason, you have to believe me." He sighed wearily. "The man was one of your people, Vivien. Just come here. We need to sort this out face to face." Realizing the gravity of the situation, Vivien didn't argue. "Okay, I'm on my way." Vivien drove to the Serenity Springs Resort in a haze of anxiety, her mind racing. When she arrived, she saw Clara and Jason waiting for her by the entrance, their expressions strangely unreadable. They let her inside without a word. The first thing she saw was the body on the floor, the dead assassin. Her eyes widened in shock. She moved closer and confirmed it was one of her men. "Before he died, he insisted you were the one who gave the order," Clara stated flatly. Vivien was stunned. "I absolutely did not. Why would I ever order him to kill you?" She took a deep breath, forcing herself to think. A moment later, understanding dawned. Wait, I think I know what happened. This man wasn't truly loyal to me. He was planted by my adoptive parents. Clara's expression grew even darker. Are you saying he was so loyal to your parents that he decided to avenge their deaths on his own? Jason remained silent, but another name surfaced in his mind. Zoe Sue, the only remaining daughter of the Sue family. He recalled her lurking in the background on several occasions, her behavior always unsettling. Do you think it could be Zoe? He asked aloud. The name hung in the air, confirming a suspicion they had all harbored. They had long been wary of Zoe, but she had always faded into the background, making it impossible to be sure. Now, all the evidence pointed directly at her. I knew there was something wrong with the way she looked at you at Brooke's wedding, Vivien said, her mind flashing back. It was pure hatred. Clara nodded grimly. It seems everything that's happened recently was orchestrated by her. She's been hiding in plain sight. What is she after? A cold fury ignited in Jason. That woman had dared to harm Clara and threaten his unborn children. It was a line he would not allow anyone to cross. He clenched his fists, his mind racing through Zoe's possible motives. Finally, he took a deep breath. If she's so determined to play games, then let's play. We'll spring a trap of our own and see exactly what she's up to. Clara and Vivien exchanged a look of understanding and nodded in agreement. A few minutes later, Ava emerged from the room and gave orders to the guards outside. Get the word out immediately. Spread it everywhere, online and through the city. Miss Sterling was attacked at the resort. She's in critical condition and has been rushed to the hospital to deliver the babies prematurely. The guards dispersed, and soon, the shocking news began to ripple through New York. An ambulance, sirens blaring, screeched to a halt outside the resort. Jason, his face a mask of worry, helped the pale Clara into the back. The matriarch rushed out, her face stricken with panic. What happened? What's wrong with Clara? Jason's voice was grave. Grandma, someone ambushed us. They shot at Clara. She wasn't hit, but the shock was too much. We have to get her to the hospital to save the babies. The matriarch's face went white with guilt. This is all my fault. I didn't secure the resort properly. It's not your fault, Grandma, Jason said, comforting her. No one could have predicted this. The only thing that matters now is Clara and the babies. He turned, his expression pained, and climbed into the ambulance. The door shut, and it sped away. From the shadows, Vivien watched it all. Her eyes scanned the perimeter and locked onto a furtive figure slipping away from a corner of the property. She got in her car and quietly followed. The car led her across town, finally stopping in front of a familiar villa. It was Zoe Sue's residence. Vivien parked behind a large tree and slipped out, keeping the house under observation. Before long, she saw the figure from the resort enter the villa. A cold smile touched her lips. I knew it. She pulled out her phone, snapped a picture of the operative entering the house, and sent it to Jason and Clara with a simple message. Zoe's man just entered her villa. Inside, the operative was rushing to report to Zoe. Miss, our man made his move. He didn't hit Clara, but the shock sent her into premature labor. She's been taken to the hospital. Her condition is supposedly critical. Zoe's face, usually pale, flushed with excitement. She couldn't believe a low-level pawn had actually managed to injure Clara Sterling. It was a miracle. A dark, triumphant smile spread across her face. The thought of Clara, 6 months pregnant, forced into a desperate delivery, filled her with a sick pleasure. Good, she said, her voice dripping with satisfaction. Very good. At 6 months, the chances of both babies surviving a premature birth are practically zero. This was payback for her parents. Now Clara would know the pain of losing family. What about the man we sent? She asked. He's dead, just as we planned. Zoe's smile widened. Excellent. Vivien will never suspect her man was working for us all along. And Jason will blame her, never tracing it back to us. The subordinate nodded obsequiously. But what about the man's parents? We promised we'd get them out of the country. Zoe's expression turned chillingly sweet. Of course we'll take care of them. My parents always taught me that only the dead can keep secrets. So, we'll just have to send them to reunite with their son. A dark, unsettling grin twisted her innocent features. The subordinate shivered, quickly lowering his head. Yes, miss. This chapter is a continuation of the previous scene from the perspective of the group tracking Zoe. Zoe sat in her car, driven by one of her subordinates, feeling utterly relaxed as the city lights blurred past. She had no idea she was being followed. Suddenly, her phone rang, shattering the quiet. It was Kiki, one of Bianca's team members, her voice frantic. Miss Sue, I just got word. Bianca is coming for you. I think she's planning something. You have to be careful. A jolt of alarm went through Zoe, but before she could process the warning, the car came to an abrupt stop. She looked out the window and found herself in a desolate, unfamiliar stretch of the suburbs. Weeds choked the roadside, and the silence was absolute. "What's going on? Why did you stop?" she demanded of the driver. He didn't answer, sitting perfectly still. A cold dread crept up Zoe's spine. She glanced around nervously and saw another car parked nearby. Four figures stood beside it: Bianca, Sprite, Brooke, and Kenzie. They were walking toward her, their expressions grim. Zoe knew something was terribly wrong. She fumbled for the door handle, but it was too late. Sprite wrenched the door open and dragged her out of the car like a rag doll. Zoe stumbled, nearly falling. "What is this?" she stammered, her eyes wide with terror. "Why did you bring me here?" Bianca, Brooke, and Kenzie stood silently, their eyes like ice. Zoe's gaze fell on her driver, and a betrayal hit her. "You," she shrieked. "You betrayed me." He refused to meet her eyes. She had paid off Vivien's people, never imagining her own could be bought by Bianca. Forcing a quavering calm into her voice, she tried to reason with them. "Miss Lynn, Miss Sterling, I have no quarrel with any of you. This is completely uncalled for." Before she could finish, Brooke's hand shot out, and a stinging slap sent Zoe sprawling to the ground. "Shut up," Brooke snarled, her face a mask of cold fury. "Stop the act. You know exactly what you did. What did you say to Clara in the hospital?" The question stunned Zoe into silence. She hadn't realized anyone had been listening. I didn't say anything." "Still lying?" Brooke sneered, looming over her. "You really won't confess until you're staring at your own coffin, will you? You dare to use my name to stir up trouble with Clara. Did you really think you could mess with Brooke Lynn and get away with it?" Zoe's face was slick with cold sweat. She shook her head frantically. I honestly don't know what I did wrong. You have to believe me." But their faces were hard and unforgiving. Bianca, her arms crossed, looked down at her with chilling finality. "Enough wasting time. It's done. Do it." Brooke, Kenzie, and Sprite nodded. They quickly tied Zoe up and dragged her into a nearby abandoned warehouse, tossing her inside like a sack of garbage. "You can't do this!" Zoe screamed, struggling against the ropes. "This is illegal. Let me go, and I'll give you anything you want." They ignored her pleas. Without a word, they lit torches and set fire to the dry brush piled around the warehouse. Flames roared to life, engulfing the structure in seconds. Trapped inside, Zoe choked on the thick smoke, her voice a desperate, rasping shriek. "Brooke Lynn, Bianca Sterling, do you think killing me will keep your secret safe? You're dreaming. I'll be watching, and one day, you'll all get what you deserve." The four women stood back, watching the inferno consume the building. Bianca had originally planned to kill Zoe first, then burn the evidence, but Brooke and Kenzie weren't cut out for that kind of work. This was cleaner. As the fire raged, they turned and walked back to their car. Once inside, Brooke, Kenzie, and Sprite started chattering excitedly, high on adrenaline. "Finally, that's over with," Brooke said. "I'll definitely sleep better tonight," Kenzie added. "We really owe you one, Bianca," Sprite said with a grin. "We never would have pulled this off without your plan." Bianca just smiled faintly, her gaze fixed on the distant fire. The problem was solved, but she didn't feel entirely at ease. She took out her phone and sent a coded message to Annie Lawn, confirming Zoe's death. Annie Lawn immediately forwarded the confirmation to her client, Jason. He was sitting by Clara's bedside, watching her sleep, his gaze so tender he could have been looking at a saint. A notification chimed on his phone. He read the message confirming Zoe's death, and a weight he hadn't fully acknowledged lifted from his shoulders. He set the phone down gently, careful not to wake Clara, and finally allowed himself to relax, his breathing evening out as he drifted off to sleep. But Clara wasn't sleeping. She slowly opened her eyes, her gaze tracing the lines of his face. Her love for him was a strange, terrifying thing, a mixture of fierce possession and fragile restraint. Zoe's words had unsettled her, making her wonder if there was truth to them. She knew forcing Jason into a vasectomy was cruel, a punishment born of the searing jealousy she felt whenever she saw his kindness toward Brooke. But now, looking at him, a sense of helplessness washed over her. What was the difference between her and Brooke? Why was he so afraid of her, yet so willing to stay by Brooke's side? She wanted to lock him away, to make him hers, and hers alone. But she held back, the fight going out of her. Maybe her grandmother was right. Maybe she was too hard on him. Perhaps it was time to try a different approach. Miles away, a car screeched to a halt beside the smoldering ruins of the warehouse. Kiki jumped out, her face pale with panic. She frantically scanned the ashes, looking for any sign of Zoe. All she saw was destruction. Her heart plummeted. "Zoe, my payment. You still owe me my final payment," she wailed, tears of financial despair streaming down her face. All that money, gone up in smoke. Devastated, she turned to leave. But as she reached her car, a flicker of movement in the nearby weeds caught her eye. She rushed over and gasped. A charred, mangled body lay in the grass, barely breathing. Her hand shaking, Kiki felt for a pulse. It was faint, but it was there. Without a second thought, she hauled the body into her car and slammed her foot on the gas, speeding toward the nearest hospital. Her money could still be saved. The next morning, Jason woke to the sunlight streaming through the window. He stretched and glanced toward Clara's room, expecting the usual chill. To his surprise, she greeted him with a small smile. "Captain Davis called earlier," she said. "There was an accidental fire at a warehouse in the suburbs last night. Zoe Sue was trapped inside. They managed to rescue her, but she's in the ICU, in a coma." Jason feigned surprise, though a flicker of annoyance went through him. That team was sloppy. Still, a coma was almost as good as dead. The plan had mostly succeeded. His attention shifted back to Clara, who was busy in the small kitchenette. "What are you doing?" he asked, a hint of surprise in his voice. "Is she actually eating normal people food?" "Making breakfast," she replied. "Yogurt with oatmeal. Do you want some?" He was stunned. The shift in her attitude was seismic. She wasn't angry anymore. She was offering him an olive branch. "From you?" he said with a grin. "Of course, I have to try it." She handed him a bowl, her eyes expectant. He took a spoonful. Not bad," he said, a corner of his mouth tipping up. A dollop of yogurt clung to his lip. Clara watched him, her expression softening. "Jason," she began, her voice quiet, "are you still angry about the surgery?" A jolt went through him. He looked at her, forcing a casual tone. "Of course not. You're my wife. You must have had your reasons. Besides, whatever brought us together, I'm not going to hold a grudge against you." It was easy to be magnanimous when, in fact, he hadn't gone through with it at all. Her eyes welled with tears. He had called her his wife. It was all she had ever wanted to hear. "You're my wife." The words echoed in her mind. It was the one phrase she had longed to hear from him, the one affirmation that could soothe the storm inside her. Clara took a shaky breath, steadying herself. She reached out and gently wiped the smudge of yogurt from the corner of his mouth. "If you could always be this understanding," she said softly, "maybe I wouldn't have been so hard on you." Jason watched her, a pang of guilt twisting in his stomach. He was deceiving her, but seeing the raw emotion in her eyes, he knew he couldn't tell her the truth now. As he stood there, lost in thought, a warm, soft pressure met his lips. He snapped back to reality to find Clara, her eyes glistening with tears, kissing him. Her lips were gentle and moist, and the unexpected tenderness of it caught him off guard. But only for a second. Then, a fire ignited within him. He responded instinctively, his hands finding her waist, pulling her flush against him. The kiss deepened, growing more passionate, more demanding, as if he wanted to consume her entirely. Clara melted into his embrace, meeting his ardor with her own. The kiss was feverish, a torrent of pent-up emotion. His hands roamed her body, feeling the warmth of her skin. His breath grew ragged. Suddenly, the door to the room swung open. The matriarch bustled in, carrying a thermos. "Clara, dear, I brought you some soup." Her voice shattered the moment. Jason and Clara sprang apart, their faces flushed, their chests heaving. The matriarch froze in the doorway, her eyes wide with a mixture of shock and embarrassment. The three of them stood there, locked in a mortifying tableau. The old woman's face turned bright red. "Oh, don't mind me. You too. Carry on." She spun around and scurried out, pulling the door shut behind her. Silence descended. Jason and Clara looked at each other, the awkwardness thick enough to cut with a knife. Jason's mind was reeling. His feelings for Clara. He was starting to suspect they were more than just a sense of duty. He found himself thinking of her constantly. They both moved to open the door for the matriarch at the same time, their fingers brushing. The brief contact sent a fresh wave of heat through them. Outside, the matriarch was practically vibrating with excitement. She grabbed Ava, who was standing nearby, and gestured for her to peek through the crack in the door with her. She couldn't believe it. Clara and Jason, hugging, kissing. Her granddaughter had finally listened. Clara opened the door, her face still pink. "Grandma, you're still here." "Oh, just delivering the soup," the matriarch said, trying to look casual. Clara invited her in. "Actually, Grandma, there's something I wanted to talk to you about. Jason and I have decided we're going to spend the next month in Switzerland, a sort of honeymoon, to get away from all the gossips." Jason's eyebrows shot up. This was the first he was hearing of it. but he played along, smiling at Clara. The matriarch thought for a moment. That's a wonderful idea. When do you plan to leave? Today, Clara said. Excellent. I'll make the arrangements at once, the matriarch declared. But as she turned to leave, Clara stopped her. Grandma, wait. Her expression turned serious. Do you remember the attack yesterday? We still don't know who is truly behind it. So, we decided to let everyone believe I'm still in the hospital, in premature labor. It will confuse anyone who might be watching us. The matriarch's face grew grim. The memory of the attack was still fresh. You're right, she said, nodding firmly. A wise precaution. They won't be able to find you that way. With the matriarch's blessing, everything was arranged in secret. Luggage was packed, flights were booked, and the cover story of Clara's hospital stay held firm. With Ava and a team of bodyguards accompanying them for security, Clara and Jason were driven to a private terminal and boarded a flight to Switzerland. On the plane, in the seclusion of their first-class suite, Clara felt a rare sense of peace. Watching the clouds drift by, she turned to Jason. You know, the first time I met you, I honestly wanted to kill you. Do you know why I didn't? He looked at her, a frown creasing his brow. Why? A faint, sad smile touched her lips. You know about my family? My mother died when I was young. After that, everyone around me, even my own father, wanted me dead. Her voice was low, heavy with the weight of old pain. Jason listened, taken aback by her sudden confession. He saw a flash of the lonely, embattled girl she must have been, and felt a surge of admiration for the woman she had become. I didn't trust anyone, she continued. The whole world felt like an enemy. And then you showed up. You told me you were marrying me because you liked me. Do you remember saying that? He froze. He didn't remember, but seeing the hope in her eyes, he nodded. Yes, I remember. She smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that lit up her whole face. But Jason's heart was heavy. At the time, those words had been 3 parts lie and 7 parts strategy. Her smile turned wry. Of course, I knew you were lying. But a part of me held onto this foolish hope. What if it was true? What if I could actually make you change your mind? Make you fall for me instead of Brooke? She laughed softly, a self-deprecating sound. Back then, I was like someone drowning in the dark, desperate for a single ray of light. And you were that light. Even though I knew your words were lies, every time I thought about getting rid of you, I couldn't do it. It was like I was lovesick, willingly sinking deeper and deeper. She knew now that her love had been a fierce, possessive need. She had been jealous of Brooke, of how easily she had won his affection. But now, she had it by her side. She took a deep breath. Jason, I love this. Just the two of us, with no one else to interfere. For this trip, can we please just put everything behind us? Can we be like we were before? When he hesitated, her expression fell. Look, we both grew up in terrible family situations. I don't want our children to repeat our mistakes. Do you understand? He looked at her, and after a long moment, he nodded. A brilliant smile broke across her face. Does your surgery still hurt? She asked gently. He laughed awkwardly. No, it's much better. Really? Let me see, she said, her hand moving toward his belt. He flinched, instinctively tightening his waistband. Clara found his reaction amusing. What are you so shy about? It's not like I haven't seen it all before. His face flushed. I'm not shy. She relented. All right, if you're going to be shy, I won't look. When you're fully healed, I'll take you to have it reversed. I know I was impulsive. Consider it my way of making it up to you, okay? Though his guilt pricked him, he forced a happy smile. Okay, whatever you say. Just then, Ava appeared to let them know they had landed. Clara took Jason's hand, a genuine warmth spreading between them as they walked off the plane. A private car was waiting. I've arranged a place for us, she told him. It's very secluded, but the scenery is incredible. What do you think? Sounds great, he said with a smile. The car drove them out of the city, toward a remote but beautiful part of the country. The landscape was a breathtaking tapestry of flower fields and rolling hills. This is the first time I've come to a place like this with you while conscious, Jason quipped. Clara winced. True, every other time he'd been bound and gagged. Soon, they arrived at a charming, rustic estate. This place is amazing, Jason said. How did you find it? I contacted Echelon, she explained. I paid a premium to use this property. I'm told it's one of their internal safe houses. The security is so high, no one, from any country, could possibly find us here. It's the perfect place to wait for the babies to arrive, completely undisturbed. Jason was impressed. He hadn't realized she had connections to Echelon, but he knew their reputation. They were reliable. That, at least, was a comfort. Jason and Clara stepped out of the car and were greeted by several smiling staff members who showed them to their accommodations. They walked through a lush garden to a charming, rustic-style cottage. Jason looked around the cottage, a strange feeling washing over him. "Who were those people?" he asked Clara. "I thought you rented this place out entirely." "I rented a portion of it," she clarified. "Echelon is a powerful organization. It was a coup to even get space here. In exchange, they provide full security. It was a good deal." He nodded, understanding. He followed her inside. The room was simple but immaculate. As he took in the decor, the dark wood furniture, the muted color palette, a sense of déjà vu struck him. It was eerily similar to the Miller family's old estate. He wondered if it was just a coincidence. Clara went to the window and pushed it open. The scent of fresh flowers flooded the room. Outside was a dazzling sea of roses, their petals swaying in the gentle breeze. Her face lit up. "Jason, come look. Our window opens right onto this incredible garden." His unease melted away at her genuine delight. He joined her at the window, and they stepped outside, both stunned by the beauty of the vast rose garden. They wandered through the paths, admiring the vibrant colors. Upstairs in the main house, Annie Lawn watched them from a window. "Are those the young couple who rented the cottage?" she asked her subordinate. "Yes, Annie Lawn. Do you know who they are?" "I do. The woman is Clara Sterling, of the Sterling family in New York. The man is Jason Miller, head of G Corp." Auntie Lawn frowned, her gaze fixed on Jason. "There's something familiar about that young man," she murmured. "I was thinking the same thing," the subordinate agreed. "He looks a bit like old man Jiang, especially his eyes. If I didn't know you and Jiang had been in Switzerland all these years, I'd almost think he was your long-lost son." Annie Lawn chuckled. "Don't be ridiculous. But I do feel a strange connection to him." She paused. "Go and tell Miss Sterling that I feel we have a certain rapport. I'd like to invite her and Mr. Miller to have dinner with me and Jiang in our courtyard tonight. I'll cook myself." The subordinate relayed the invitation. Jason and Clara were perplexed by the sudden offer from a stranger, but out of politeness, they accepted. Meanwhile, back in New York, with the Zoe situation seemingly resolved, Brooke finally felt a sense of relief. She went home, showered, and for the first time in weeks, slept soundly through the night. The next morning, she woke up feeling refreshed and energetic. Her body was holding up remarkably well during the pregnancy. Maybe after the first trimester, she and Jason could. The thought filled her with renewed determination. After a quick breakfast, she drove to the hospital, ready to resume her surveillance of Jason and Clara. She waited all day and saw nothing. As the hours ticked by, her patience wore thin. She tried calling Jason, but the call went straight to voicemail. Growing increasingly anxious, she marched up to the floor where Clara's room was supposed to be, determined to get answers. Two imposing bodyguards blocked the hallway. "I need to see Clara Sterling," Brooke told one of them. The man didn't even look at her. "She's not seeing anyone." Brooke was about to lose her temper when Bianca arrived, carrying a container of soup. "I brought this for my aunt," she told the guard sweetly. "Could you please let me in?" "Miss Sterling is not accepting any visitors," the guard repeated flatly. After several more failed attempts, Bianca and Brooke retreated. "What is Clara playing at?" Brooke fumed. "Is she just going to keep him locked up forever?" "Maybe she's really not well," Bianca suggested. "She was attacked. She might have gone into early labor. Maybe she just needs to rest." Brooke didn't buy it. Even if Clara was shaken, she wouldn't be so fragile as to not even let Jason answer his phone. Something wasn't right. As night fell in Switzerland, Jason and Clara walked toward Annie Land's courtyard, a delicious aroma wafting toward them. Jason knocked on the door. "Coming," a cheerful voice called from inside. The door opened, and Annie Lawn stood there, smiling warmly. The moment Jason saw her, he froze. Her voice, her mannerisms, they were so much like his mother's, who had died years ago. Only her face was different. He was completely captivated, the memory of his mother flooding his mind. Annie Lawn froze too. She'd only seen him from a distance, but now, standing before her, the sense of familiarity was overwhelming. A middle-aged man appeared behind her. "Honey, who is it?" Annie Lawn snapped out of her trance. Come in," she said, ushering them inside. "Old Jiang, our young friends are here. Go check on the food in the kitchen." Old Jiang nodded and headed for the kitchen. As Jason and Clara entered the courtyard, they saw a large table laden with food. The atmosphere was so warm and welcoming that Jason's carefully constructed defenses began to crumble. He felt a strange sense of peace here. Just then, old Jiang returned with the last dish. Jason looked up, and his eyes met the man's. He was shocked to see that the left side of Jiang's face was horribly scarred by burns, leaving only his right eye untouched. The sight was jarring. Without thinking, Jason blurted out, "Sir, what happened to your face?" He was surprised by the pang of sympathy he felt for this total stranger. Annie Lawn quickly explained. "Oh, we were both injured during a mission. I had surgery to repair the damage, but old Jiang here refuses to go under the knife. Jason and Clara nodded, though a strange feeling settled over them both. Annie Land's gaze softened as she looked at them, especially when she noticed Clara's pregnant belly. "How many months along are you, dear?" she asked gently. Clara tensed, wary of the question. Sensing her discomfort, Annie Land laughed it off. "Oh, listen to me. Never mind that. Eat, eat. You don't want to starve the little one." She began piling food onto their plates. After the meal, she smiled warmly. "Please, make yourselves at home here. If you need anything at all, just call for me or Jiang." After thanking their hosts, Jason and Clara returned to their cottage. "Do you know that woman?" Clara asked as soon as they were inside. Jason shook his head, looking bewildered. "No, I've never seen her before in my life." Clara frowned. "Then why was she being so nice to us?" The next morning, Ava came running into the cottage, out of breath. "Sir, I have the information you wanted on Annie Land and Old Man Jiang." "What did you find?" Jason asked eagerly. "They're big shots," Ava said, catching her breath. "Second-tier management in Echelon. They're apparently very trusted. Besides the top boss, they handle most of the day-to-day operations." Jason frowned. "So, they're high-ranking. Did you find anything else?" Ava shook her head. "Nothing. I dug as deep as I could. Their records are a complete blank slate before they joined Echelon. It's like they didn't exist." Jason fell silent. Since the investigation had hit a dead end, there was nothing to do but stay put. Besides, the place was peaceful, and for reasons he couldn't explain, he felt safe here. A week passed. Clara started a small garden in their yard, and Annie Land would often come over to offer tips. The two women struck up an easy friendship. Jason stayed close to Clara, watching her, but his mind was elsewhere. He hadn't left any word for Brooke or the others. He hadn't been able to. Clara was constantly by his side, and his old phone didn't work internationally. He wondered what kind of trouble his week-long silence was causing back home. In New York, Brooke was at her wit's end. She'd been camped outside the hospital for a solid week, and there had been no sign of Jason or Clara. She was now convinced they were in some kind of trouble. Were they in there performing alchemy? It was the only explanation, and it was insane. Clara had a company to run. She couldn't just disappear for a week. That night, she called Kinsey, her voice frantic. When Kinsey arrived, she looked just as confused. "Brooke, what are you doing here? Have you seen Jason?" She hadn't heard from him in over a week either. "Seen him? Kinsey, I think Clara has him locked up somewhere." Brooke declared, "I've been watching the hospital for a week, and nothing. I need you to help me break him out." "Break him out?" Kinsey looked at her like she was crazy. But there was a conviction in Brooke's eyes that was hard to dismiss. Reluctantly, she agreed. "Will you help me or not?" Brooke pressed. "If you don't, our friendship is over." Kinsey sighed. Was their friendship really that cheap? But she knew there was no arguing with Brooke once she'd made up her mind. "Fine, I'll help." Later that night, dressed in black, they snuck onto the hospital grounds. "How are we getting in?" Kinsey whispered, eyeing the guards at the entrance. Brooke pulled a grappling hook and rope from her bag with a confident grin. "We're climbing." Kinsey's jaw dropped. "You're pregnant. Are you insane? What if you fall?" She remembered how fragile Clara had been, but Brooke seemed as strong as an ox. "That's why you're here," Brooke said with a nervous laugh. "To catch me if I fall." Somehow, they managed to scale the wall and reach the window of Clara's supposed room. "Clara Sterling, you were so going to get it," Brooke muttered. She peered inside, but it was pitch black. "See anything?" she whispered to Kinsey. "No, it looks empty." They slid the window open and slipped inside. The room was deserted. Not a soul in sight. "This is impossible," Brooke whispered. "Where are they?" "They're gone." Kinsey stated the obvious. A horrifying thought struck Brooke. "It's Clara," she said, her voice trembling with rage. "She's hidden him away somewhere." She couldn't stand it. She had been willing to share Jason, to find some kind of compromise. But Clara had taken him all for herself. Maybe she just wanted a safe place to have the baby, Kinsey offered weakly. "No. Then why hasn't he answered my messages?" Brooke was resolute. "I have to find him. Should we tell Bianca?" Kinsey suggested. "She could help." "No." Brooke snapped. "This has nothing to do with her. We can find him ourselves." The last thing she wanted was more competition. "But no but," Brooke said, turning to climb back out the window. As she did, she felt a presence behind her. She spun around. Bianca was standing there, a ghostly figure in the dark room. "Are you sure about that, Brooke?" she asked softly. "Are you sure you can find him without me?" Brooke nearly jumped out of her skin. She stared at Bianca, speechless. Kinsey winced. I did try to tell you she was here. You could have tried harder." Brooke hissed at her. Bianca smirked. "Save the drama. I wasn't just passing by. I followed you. I saw what you saw." "So," Clara and Jason are missing. Are you really so petty you try to keep that from me? Petty? I don't even know you. Why should I tell you anything? Brooke shot back. Bianca's smile vanished. Fine. Search on your own. I don't have time to waste. We'll see who finds him first. Just don't come crying to me when you fail. She turned to leave. Wait. Brooke's pride crumbled. She needed Bianca's skills. I was just kidding. It would be so much harder to search alone. We should work together, right? As long as she found Jason, she could worry about her pride later. Bianca paused, a flicker of triumph in her eyes. Fine, since you asked so nicely. She needed Brooke's resources too. So how do we get out of here? Brooke muttered. I barely made it up here. How did you manage it? A flicker of embarrassment crossed Bianca's face. I climbed too. The front door was obviously not an option. Brooke sighed. So you're not so smooth after all. The three of them awkwardly climbed back down the wall. For the next week, they launched a three-pronged search. Brooke had her people scouring the country. Bianca leveraged her connections within the Sterling family. And Kinsey went to the one place they hadn't checked. She found Sprite at the orphanage, playing with the children alongside Vivien. Have you heard from Jason? Kinsey asked. Sprite looked up, surprised. No. Is he missing? Vivien overheard and hurried over. What do you mean Jason's missing? Kinsey nodded grimly. Vivien fell silent, a wave of worry washing over her. She had promised not to be a burden to Jason, but the thought of him disappearing was terrifying. The fact that Jason had vanished with Clara only deepened Vivien's anxiety. Was it possible they had gone into seclusion so Clara could give birth safely? It made sense, especially with her due date approaching. But then again, Zoe Sue was in a coma, practically dead. What danger was there left to hide from? Torn, Vivien decided to send a message to Clara. Where are you and Jason? She typed, her thumb hovering over the send button. She pressed it. The message went out into the void, and silence was the only reply. A gnawing unease settled in her stomach. She decided she had to see Zoe for herself. She left the orphanage and drove to the hospital. At the information desk, she asked for Zoe Sue's room. And what is your relationship to the patient? The doctor on duty asked. I'm her sister, Vivien replied, pulling out her ID. It wasn't a complete lie. She was the adopted daughter of the Sue family. That made her half a sister, at least. The doctor led her to the room. Zoe was lying on the bed, a frail figure lost in a web of tubes and wires. How is she? Vivien asked, feigning concern. The doctor sighed. The prognosis is not good. She'll likely never wake up. A vegetative state is the best-case scenario. A wave of relief washed over Vivien. If Zoe never woke up, she could never hurt Jason again. Putting on a somber face, she pressed a thick envelope of cash into the doctor's hand. Please, take good care of her. Let me know if there are any changes. Of course, Miss Sue, the doctor said with a small, knowing smile. Vivien gave Zoe one last look and walked out. The moment the door clicked shut, Zoe's eyes snapped open. She watched Vivien's retreating figure with cold, hard clarity. So, she couldn't even wait to come and see me, Zoe thought with a humorless smile. She didn't know, of course, that the doctor had been on Zoe's payroll from the beginning. She still cares so much about me, Zoe whispered to herself. Well, I won't let her have an easy time of it. The doctor leaned in. Miss Sue, I did as you asked. About my payment. You'll get it, Zoe said, her voice a rough rasp. But this is just the beginning. She caught a glimpse of her reflection in a polished metal tray. The face staring back was a grotesque mask of scar tissue. A twisted, searing hatred for Vivien, Clara, and Jason consumed her. She knew she owed her life to Vivien's bone marrow and blood donations, a fact that only fueled her rage. Vivien had chosen love, chosen Jason, over family loyalty. And now, Zoe's body was failing. The fire hadn't killed her, but had left her broken. Without the support her parents had arranged, the supply of compatible blood and marrow had dried up. She knew she was living on borrowed time. The doctor had given her 2 months. 2 months. It wasn't enough, but it would have to be. She would not die before her parents were avenged. Find them. She ordered her operatives. Find Clara Sterling and Jason Miller. I have 2 months to kill them both. That night, in Switzerland, Jason and Clara sat in the middle of the rose garden, under a blanket of stars. He had found a bottle of non-alcoholic rose petal wine, specially brewed for expectant mothers. Clara took a sip, a small, genuine smile on her face. A few glasses later, a rosy flush colored her cheeks, and her eyes grew hazy. Jason gently pulled her into his arms, and they lay back among the flowers, gazing up at the sky. I wish we could stay here forever, she murmured, her head resting on his chest. In that moment, the possessive, almost pathological love she felt for him surged. She wanted to lock him away here, keep him for herself, forever. But she fought the impulse down. "I'll always be with you," Jason said softly. "Promise?" she asked, a hint of insecurity in her voice. "After the babies are born, will you still be this nice to me? Or will you like them more?" He laughed, a real, genuine laugh. When she wasn't being a terrifying corporate overlord, she could be surprisingly childlike. "How could I?" he teased, tweaking her nose. "You're my wife. That will never change." But that wasn't enough for her. She suddenly grew serious, her hand coming up to cup his jaw, forcing him to meet her gaze. "I don't care. I need you to promise me." He was taken aback by her intensity, but he saw the vulnerability beneath it. Okay, I promise," he said, his voice gentle. "Even after the babies come, I won't care about you one bit less. We're a family. You'll always be the most important person to me." It was a strange thing to say. It was a lover's promise, but he'd couched it in the language of duty. We're a family. In his heart, he knew he didn't truly love her yet. He liked her, yes, but this was still about responsibility. She seemed satisfied, releasing his chin with a small, pleased smile. Just then, Jason caught a faint, sweet scent. "Are you wearing perfume?" Clara blushed. "No, not today." He leaned closer. "Then it must be you," he whispered. "I think it's because I like you so much that everything about you smells good to me." Her heart hammered against her ribs. The air grew thick with unspoken things. Her eyes, deep and mesmerizing, drew him in. She tilted her head up, her lips parting slightly. He leaned in to kiss her, but the last second, she playfully dodged him. A frustrated growl escaped his lips. He was done playing games. In one swift move, he wrapped his arm around her waist and pulled her against him. "Hey," she yelped, a blush creeping up her neck, though she made no move to pull away. "Oh, so you were just teasing me, huh?" he murmured, a smirk playing on his lips. He captured her mouth in a searing kiss, his hands exploring the curves of her body. Her breath came in short, sharp gasps, her body melting against his. The kiss grew more intense, more desperate. But then, a flicker of panic crossed her face. "Wait," she gasped, pushing him away. "The babies." Reality crashed down on him. He froze, his body screaming in protest. It was torture. He was going to be a father, but it meant 10 months of celibacy. They were both consumed by a desire they couldn't act on. With a shuddering breath, he pulled back. "Right," he said, his voice hoarse. He stroked her hair, his touch gentle. "After the babies are born." She murmured, a little disappointed, but understanding. She curled up against him like a contented cat and closed her eyes. Jason watched her sleep, but his mind was troubled. Zoe Sue. He couldn't shake the feeling that her story wasn't over. It was all too neat, too simple. When he finally looked down again, Clara was fast asleep, her breathing deep and even. She was a vision, her pale skin luminous in the moonlight, surrounded by a sea of red roses. Petals had fallen into her dark hair, creating a scene of impossible, dreamlike beauty. He was mesmerized. He tried to gently pull his arm from her grasp, but even in sleep, her grip was like iron, as if she was terrified he might slip away. The warmth of Clara's body seeped into him, and Jason couldn't help a small, amused smile. Was she really that afraid he'd run off? He never would have guessed that in sleep, Clara could be so dependent on him. The feeling of being needed sent a pleasant ripple through his chest. He looked at her closed eyes, her steady breathing, and felt a wave of helpless affection. He was completely smitten. Carefully, as if she were the most precious artifact in the world, he scooped her into his arms. He moved slowly, his steps measured and silent as he carried her toward her room, terrified of waking her. Halfway down the hall, he ran into Annie Lawn. A friendly smile bloomed on her face when she saw him carrying Clara. "Jason," she said warmly, "it's so late. Where are you taking Mrs. Sterling?" Jason smiled back. "Oh, Annie Lawn. She fell asleep. I'm just taking her back to her room to rest." Auntie Lawn nodded, then hesitated, a thoughtful look on her face. "Jason, there's something I've been meaning to ask you. You look so familiar, like I've seen you somewhere before. Do I know you from somewhere?" Her words struck a chord. Jason studied her face for a moment, noticing a kind of comforting quality about her. He'd felt the same way, that sense of strange familiarity, but had brushed it off. Maybe it was just a coincidence. "It's funny you should say that. Annie Lawn," he said with a soft laugh. "I've had the same feeling about you." Her smile widened, but it was quickly replaced by a shadow of concern. She paused, then lowered her voice. "Jason, there's something you need to know. I've heard that the Carrington family in Switzerland is investigating you, and it seems they've already found out that you and Clara are here." Her tone was heavy. It was information she'd gathered discreetly, information she wasn't supposed to share. But for some reason, looking at Jason, she couldn't keep it to herself. There was some inexplicable connection to this young man, a connection that sparked something she hadn't felt in years. Worry. Jason's heart skipped a beat. Why would the Carringtons be investigating him? It confirmed his deepest fears. If they were planning something, he and Clara weren't safe here. Not now, not with Clara pregnant. Any misstep could be catastrophic. His expression hardened. Stranded in a foreign country without Sprite, his options were limited. He had to rely on the woman in front of him. He nodded, his voice low and serious. Thank you for the warning, Annalon. Actually, there's something I need your help with. Name it, she said without hesitation. I need you to find me a personal bodyguard. If Annalon was echelon management, finding a capable operator from the organization shouldn't be a problem. She agreed instantly. No problem. I'll arrange it immediately. For Jason, she would grant any request. He thanked her again, then continued on his way, carrying Clara back to their room. Annalon watched them go, that strange feeling of déjà vu washing over her again. That boy. She was sure she knew him from somewhere. She stood there for a long moment, lost in thought, before pulling out her phone and calling Bianca Sterling in New York. The call connected almost immediately. Annalon kept it vague, explaining only that a mission had just come up that required immediate acceptance. She mentioned a young couple who needed a bodyguard, deliberately omitting names. She knew Bianca had a thing for Jason and thought this might entice her. But Echelon had strict rules about client confidentiality. To her surprise, Bianca flatly refused. Annalon, I'm swamped with other things right now. I don't have the bandwidth for a new assignment. Give it to someone else. Annalon was stunned. Bianca, don't be foolish. You've refused multiple assignments already. You know the protocols. Echelon's patience is wearing thin. She pleaded with her, not wanting to see the girl disciplined. The organization's punishments were notoriously severe, a fact Bianca should have understood the day she joined. But Bianca's tone remained firm. I really don't have the time, Annalon. Hearing the finality in her voice, Auntie Lon sighed in frustration. Fine, Bianca. Have it your way. But from now on, you're on your own. Whatever happens with Echelon, you'll have to face it yourself. She hung up, fuming. Back in New York, Bianca truly was at her wit's end. Days of searching had yielded nothing. Jason had vanished as if he never existed. Brooklyn, meanwhile, was spiraling. Just moments before, in a lavishly decorated villa, Brooke had snatched a limited edition handbag from a table and hurled it at a bodyguard. The man, standing stock still with several others, didn't flinch as it struck his chest. They all kept their heads down, silent. The bag slid to the floor, its contents, lipstick, a compact, other cosmetics, spilling across the marble. Idiots. Morons. Brooke shrieked, her voice raw with fury. You can't even find one person? What am I paying you for? She grabbed another designer bag and threw it at a different guard. What are you still standing here for? Get out and find him. If you don't find Jason, don't even think about coming back. The bodyguards, desperate to escape the line of fire, hurried out of the room. Bianca's phone had started ringing just as Brooke's tirade ended. Brooke, who had slumped onto the sofa to sulk, shot up as if electrocuted. Was it Jason? Did they have news? Every time a phone rang, that was her first thought. She rushed to Bianca's side. Who is it? Is it Jason? Her face was flushed, her voice trembling with a desperate hope. Bianca glanced at the caller ID, her expression falling. She'd been hoping for the same thing, but it was just Annalon calling about another mission. Her interest evaporated. Who is it? Brooke pressed, leaning in. Is there news about Jason? No, Bianca said flatly. Annalon with an assignment. Bodyguard duty for some couple in Switzerland. Brooke deflated like a punctured balloon, collapsing back onto the sofa. With a sharp crack, she swept a coffee cup off the table, sending it shattering to the floor. Black liquid pooled on the pristine white marble. A wave of helpless sorrow washed over her, and she felt the burn of tears. Without Jason, she didn't know what to do. Her world had gone dim, the sky a permanent, miserable gray. Clara, how could you be so cruel? All she wanted was to see him, just once from a distance. Why did she have to hide him away? She's gone too far. Brooke muttered, her voice thick with despair. Why did she hide him so well? I miss him so much. Bianca remained silent, but she felt the same gnawing emptiness. She was just as worried, just as consumed by a longing so sharp it made it hard to breathe. She found herself praying, promising the universe she would do anything, anything at all, just to have him back safely. But where was he? The anxiety, the uncertainty, the relentless ache of missing him. It was all a tangled, suffocating knot in her chest. Suddenly, a thought sparked in Brooke's mind. Do you think? Do you think she's done something to him? They had searched every conceivable place in New York City. He was just gone. She frowned, her mind racing. A horrified gasp escaped her lips. Oh my God. Bianca jumped, startled. What is it? Stop being so dramatic. Her nerves were already frayed. Brooke's eyes were wide with terror, her hands covering her mouth. What if Clara broke his legs? That woman was capable of anything. To keep him trapped, to stop him from running. It would be the simplest, most direct solution. The more she considered it, the more plausible it seemed. Her eyes welled up. If his legs are broken, what will we do? Then we could never. She trailed off, a blush coloring her cheeks as Bianca shot her a withering glare. But the seed of doubt had been planted in Bianca's mind as well. She didn't want to believe it, of course. She wouldn't, she said, her tone firm, trying to convince herself as much as Brooke. She wouldn't do that. Then what do you think she's doing to him? She would never just let him be. Maybe she has him tied up, torturing him day and night. Brooke's imagination ran wild, conjuring a montage of horror movie cliches. She pictured Jason chained in a dark dungeon, bruised and bloodied, his legs shattered, screaming in agony. The thought was so vivid it made her physically ill. Her heart ached for him. They had to find him. Now. Bianca just stared at her, dumbfounded. Are you writing a movie script? What century was this woman living in? Her logic was non-existent. But aren't you worried about him at all? Brooke's face was pale, her voice rising with hysteria. How could he possibly be okay in that woman's hands? Bianca didn't answer. Of course she was worried. Every day without news was another day her own anxiety ratcheted higher. In that, she and Brooke were pathetic allies. Look, just calm down, Bianca said, her voice softer now. Worrying isn't going to help. We just have to wait for news. It was all they could do. After offering a few more hollow reassurances, Bianca left. The vast villa fell silent, and the emptiness in Brooke's heart grew larger. Jason, where are you? Just a glimpse, just to know he was safe. That was all she wanted. At this point, she didn't even care about the rest. If he came back, she would even grit her teeth and share him with Clara. The thought made her collapse onto the sofa, sobbing. Just then, the sound of footsteps approached, and Mr. Lee let himself in. He had fully recovered from his recent ordeal and had been helping with the search. Seeing her in such a state, he walked over to console her. She'd been like this for days. Miss Lynn, please don't worry, he said gently. I have my best people on it. I promise, we will find him. He went to the fridge and returned with a strawberry milkshake, placing it in front of her. Here, drink this. It will make you feel better. It was his go-to trick since she was a little girl, the one thing that could always soothe her tantrums. Brooke sat up, glanced at the milkshake, and swiped it off the table. It splattered across the floor. I don't want this. I want Jason. Her eyes were swollen and red. Mr. Lee, she asked, her voice small and broken. Do you think he doesn't want me anymore? Mr. Lee sighed. He knew the whole messy story and had always supported her, but it was painfully obvious she had lost this round. The man had been stolen right out from under her. Brooke, listen to me, he said patiently. Let's just wait. What if he comes back on his own? Wouldn't that be for the best? His attempt at comfort only enraged her. Wait. You want me to wait? What if something happens to him? I'm not waiting. I need to see him to know he's safe. Mr. Lee felt a surge of helpless anger. When she got like this, she was impossible. There was nothing he could do. Suddenly, Brooke winced. The stress, the crying, the pregnancy, it was all taking its toll. A dull ache started in her abdomen. She wiped the tears from her face, feeling utterly defeated. Almost without thinking, the words tumbled out. Mr. Lee, if Jason doesn't want me, what am I going to do about the baby? The baby couldn't be born without a father. Mr. Lee froze, the words hitting him like a physical blow. What? You're pregnant? He stared at her, his mind blank. A second later, it was as if he'd sat on attack. He shot up from the sofa, his face turning a dangerous shade of red. He felt like his head was going to explode. That son of a bitch. He had done this to Brooke? And she was pregnant? Jason Miller, who was legally Clara Sterling's husband. The man was a two-timing, immoral bastard. What is it? Brooke pouted, looking at him as if he were the one overreacting. Why are you yelling? I knew I shouldn't have told you. I'm already a month along. She looked down, a faint blush on her cheeks. And I was the one who started it. She looked up, her expression a bizarre mix of defiance and delusion. It's not like just anyone can have his baby. Vivien and the others wish they could. Besides Clara, I'm the only one. Now he can never get rid of me. And he loves me. Why else would he have been with me and not them? The sheer lovesick logic of it all left Mr. Lee speechless. You. He pointed a trembling finger at her, sputtering, unable to form a complete sentence. He stomped his foot in frustration. Right now, he wanted nothing more than to drag Jason back here and tear him limb from limb. Then he remembered, if he killed Jason, Brooke's baby would be fatherless. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down, and let it out in a long, weary sigh. All right, I'll risk my life, Miss Lynn. I will get him back for you. But how? She whined. We don't even know where he is. Suddenly, Mr. Lee's eyes lit up. He slapped his forehead. That's right. A week ago, someone photographed Jason and Clara at several airports. They booked multiple flights, a common tactic the wealthy use to throw people off their trail. He had saved photos of all the flight manifests. Just then, Brooke's eyes fell on the screen of his phone. She saw 2 words, Switzerland flight. Switzerland? She remembered Bianca's phone call. Annie Lon had offered her a job protecting a young couple who had just arrived in Switzerland a week ago. Her not-so-sharp mind finally made a connection. A brilliant spark ignited in the fog of her despair. She leaped from the sofa. Could it be them? The timing was too perfect. It had to be them. A giddy laugh almost escaped her lips. But it was just a guess. She couldn't be sure. The only way to know was to go there herself. She couldn't stand waiting another second. Without another word, Brooke booked the earliest flight to Switzerland. She didn't bother packing, just grabbing a couple of outfits and stuffing them into a bag before rushing out the door. Just as she stepped outside, she ran straight into Vivien Sue. The 2 women froze, staring at each other. The air crackled with unspoken rivalry. Finally, Brooke broke the silence, her voice dripping with feigned arrogance. What are you doing here? Does she have news of Jason? The thought made her ask. Vivien didn't hide her intentions. Kinsey asked me to come. She was also hoping for news. Have you heard anything? So they were both after the same thing. On that, at least they were aligned. I was about to ask you the same thing, Vivien said, her eyes narrowing as she took in Brooke's luggage. No. Brooke's eyes flickered guiltily. She had a lead, but she wasn't about to share it with Vivien. Jason was hers. Besides, it was just a hunch. Vivien's gaze was sharp. Where are you going? The intensity of her stare made Brooke's palms sweat. After a moment's hesitation, she tossed her head back, her voice deliberately loud. To find Jason, obviously. Did you think I was going on vacation? In their current reality, it was the only plausible answer. You know where he is? Vivien asked immediately. No idea. If you don't know, how would I? Brooke clapped a hand over her mouth, nearly letting her suspicion slip. She didn't want anyone else horning in on her baby. Just then, Mr. Lee pulled up to the curb. Without another word, Brooke haughtily grabbed her bag and slid into the car. Vivien watched them drive off, a frown creasing her forehead. If Brooke didn't know where Jason was, then where on earth was she going? Meanwhile, in Switzerland, Jason and Clara were just waking up. Thanks to the non-alcoholic rose-petal wine from the night before, Clara had slept soundly. A gentle knock on the door broke the morning silence. Jason's eyes fluttered open. It was already bright outside. He glanced at Clara, still sleeping peacefully beside him. She stirred, her eyes opening slowly, still hazy with sleep. Is someone here? She murmured. I'll get it. Jason slipped out of bed and went to the door. Auntie Lon stood outside, and beside her was a thin, frail-looking young woman. Jason, the bodyguard you asked for, has arrived. Since Bianca had refused the assignment, she'd had to give it to Kiki. This is Kiki, Auntie Lon said, gesturing for the girl to step forward. She's here to protect you. Jason looked her up and down. She was small and slight, looking more like a teenager than a bodyguard. She seems a little young, he said, surprised. Echelon was a powerful organization with countless operatives. This girl looked completely unassuming. Before Auntie Lon could reply, Kiki spoke up. I'm an orphan. I grew up in a children's home. I was a bit malnourished. Don't let her size fool you, Auntie Lon added. Her skills are top-notch. Jason's brow furrowed, but hearing she was an orphan, he didn't press further. All right, come on in. He led Kiki inside. I had Auntie Lon find us a bodyguard. This is Kiki. Clara was already up. She gave Kiki a brief, indifferent glance. They had already planned to go shopping today, to buy things for the babies. After a quick breakfast, they changed into casual clothes and left with Ava and Kiki. They drove to a luxurious shopping district in the city, lined with boutiques filled with baby clothes, toys, and everything imaginable. The street was bustling. Jason carefully kept Clara on the inside, shielding her from the crowds. She noticed the small gesture, and a quiet warmth spread through her chest. With him, she always felt happy. It was a strange and unfamiliar thought. The other women who adored him weren't entirely wrong. Honey, look at this, Jason called out. The babies would love it. She followed his gaze to a pair of robotic puppies. He playfully tossed a plastic bone, and the 2 dogs scrambled after it, nipping at each other. It was ridiculous and charming. Clara nodded slightly. It was cute, but did he really think newborns could play with that? Men are just boys with bigger toys. She didn't want to burst his bubble. Darling, she said, pointing to shop ahead. Let's go look at bottles. Compared to robotic dogs, bottles were a bit more essential. Oh, right. Jason quickly put down the bone and followed her. Inside, they were immediately absorbed by the dazzling array of baby products. No one noticed Kiki lag behind. Slipping into a quiet corner, she quickly texted their location to Zoe Sue. It was part of their plan, report their movements the first chance she got. Soon, Zoe's phone lit up with a message. A twisted smile spread across her face as she stared at the screen. Jason, Clara, you're dead this time. She was still confined to a hospital bed, her body recovering, but she had spent every waking moment plotting her revenge. This was her chance, and she couldn't afford any mistakes. She didn't act immediately. She knew Vivien and the others were also searching for Jason. She had to strike before they found him. Even before her injuries, Zoe lacked the ability to kill them herself. She needed help. But who? She ran through a mental list of everyone she knew. All of them were either useless or unreliable. Damn it. At the most critical moment, she had no one. Then, an idea came to her. Switzerland. The Carrington family was based in Switzerland. Their heir had been killed because of Jason and Clara. They had to hate them as much as she did. If she couldn't do it, they could. They were the perfect instrument for her revenge. A grim smile touched Zoe's lips, her eyes glittering with malice. She found the contact information for the Carrington group and, without a second thought, forwarded Jason's location. Now, all she had to do was wait for the show to begin. A few minutes later, a reply came. It was a simple confirmation. They were sending people immediately. Zoe let out a long, satisfied breath. If all went according to plan, today would be Jason and Clara's last. The thought of them dead filled her with such joy that even the pain from her burns seemed to fade away. She never considered that Jason might not be as foolish as she hoped. Back in the boutique, a flicker of movement caught Jason's eye. He saw Kiki, hunched over her phone, typing furtively. Her suspicious behavior set off alarm bells. If she was a mole sent by someone else, they were in serious trouble. The more he thought about it, the more wrong it felt. He walked over to her. What are you doing? Kiki's expression didn't change. She calmly locked her phone screen. An echelon operative was trained for this. Nothing, just a message from headquarters. It was a plausible excuse, and he couldn't very well demand to see it. Still, something fell off. If she was working for the Carringtons, they were in imminent danger. There was no time to waste. Jason didn't press her further. He walked back to Clara and took her arm. Honey, let's go back. We can come back another day. Clara looked surprised. But we just got here. I'll explain later. He didn't want to stay a second longer. Every moment they remained here increased the risk. As they were getting into the car, he pulled Ava aside and whispered a few quick instructions in her ear. She nodded grimly. Once everyone was in the car, they sped away. Sensing Jason's suspicion, Kiki grew anxious. Ava sat beside her, her body pressed close. Our employer has requested that for security purposes, you hand over your phone, Ava said, her voice firm but polite. Don't worry. You'll be compensated for the inconvenience after the mission is complete. Kiki couldn't argue. It was a reasonable request to protect a client. Many high-profile employers demanded it from the start. Reluctantly, she handed her phone to Ava. The rest of the drive back was quiet. When the car pulled safely into the resort's driveway, Jason finally allowed himself to breathe a sigh of relief. He didn't know how close they'd been. The Carringtons' men arrived on the street just 5 minutes after they'd left. If Jason hadn't acted on his gut, they would have walked right into an ambush. Finding the location empty, the men scoured the entire street. There was no sign of Jason or Clara. Furious, they sent a scathing message to Zoe, accusing her of sending them on a wild goose chase. Zoe was momentarily stunned. They didn't find him? Kiki's information shouldn't have been wrong. There was only one explanation. Jason had moved. A cold smile touched her lips. He was smarter and more cautious than she'd anticipated. She started to text Kiki, then stopped. If Jason was suspicious, a message from her would expose her asset. Kiki was just a pawn, disposable, but losing her meant losing her only link to Jason. She had to be careful. Fortunately, she had a plan B. I know what happened, she texted back to the Carringtons, her tone confident. Don't worry. He can't run. I have a backup. Kiki had a tracker on her. As long as she was near Jason, they could find him. Back at the villa, Jason led Clara into their room, Ava and Kiki remaining outside. He closed the door firmly and wiped a sheen of sweat from his forehead. Clara had noticed his tension since the boutique, but had held her questions. Now that they were alone, she finally asked, What happened? He didn't answer right away. He poured her a glass of water, then downed half a bottle himself. Finally, he sat down. That night, Annie Lawn told me the Carringtons were investigating us. The Carringtons? Clara knew of them. She couldn't believe they were still pursuing this. I was worried, he continued, so I asked her to find Kiki to protect us. He moved closer, sitting beside her on the bed. Clara's face flushed as he gently wrapped an arm around her waist, giving her a playful squeeze. The scent of her rose perfume was intoxicating, and the feel of her in his arms sent a jolt of pleasure through him. She didn't pull away, which only made his smile widen. "Stop it," she chided, though there was no real heat in her voice. "We're talking about something serious." Her feigned annoyance just made him want her more. "You're about to be a mother, and you're still this shy? You weren't shy on our wedding night. You were so wild, I almost thought I was the one who was supposed to be worn out by the end of it." He leaned in, his voice a low whisper in her ear. The words made her face burn. "Jason, you're an asshole. Say one more word, and I'll get angry for real." He laughed, finally satisfied, and ruffled her hair. Okay, I'll stop teasing." He sobered. "Honey, you're my top priority right now. I have to be cautious. I saw Kiki secretly texting, and it looked suspicious, so—" He didn't need to finish. She understood. That's why he'd rushed them back, why he'd had Ava take Kiki's phone. A warmth spread through her chest. He was so meticulous, so thoughtful when it came to her safety. Growing up, she had always fought her own battles, never relying on anyone. The only person she'd ever trusted was herself. But Jason, again and again, he protected her. This man, who seemed so flighty and unserious, was proving himself to be someone she could lean on. So this was what it felt like to be protected. This was that sense of happy dependence other women talked about. Her gaze softened, though Jason didn't seem to notice. His mind was already elsewhere. "Honey," he began slowly, "I have a bad feeling about Zoe Sue. After the fire, they'd never confirmed her condition. For all they knew, she could be dead or alive." His words made Clara frown. Besides the Carringtons, Zoe hated them more than anyone. If she was still alive, she would undoubtedly seek revenge. "Why don't you contact Vivien?" Clara suggested. Vivien was, nominally, Zoe's sister. She was the best person to investigate. Jason was taken aback. He never thought Clara would be the one to suggest it. "You won't get jealous if I contact her?" he teased, wanting to see her reaction. A slight blush colored her cheeks. "Maybe a little," she admitted, too proud to confess the full extent of it. "Really? You're sure?" he pressed, inching closer. "Because I'm going to do it. Don't get mad." His gaze was so intense, it made her heart pound. God, he could charm a statue with that look. She looked away, trying to calm the frantic beating in her chest. "You can, with my permission. But no secret calls behind my back." She paused. "Or at least, don't let me find out." He chuckled at her shy bravado. She wasn't as tough as she pretended to be. Underneath it all, she was just like any other woman. With a little coaxing, she could be softened. "All right, you got it." He pulled out his phone and, with her watching, sent a text to Vivien. Vivien was at Brooke's villa with Kinsey when the message came through. Brooke had stormed out earlier without explanation. Now, Kinsey and Vivien were sitting in the living room, nursing drinks they had no interest in. "I saw Brooke leave earlier," Vivien said, cutting straight to the point. "Do you think she has news about Jason?" Kinsey shook her head. "No, she didn't say anything to me." Vivien sighed in frustration. Still no word. She prayed he was okay. "What are we going to do?" Kinsey asked. "Should we call the police?" "It wouldn't help," Vivien said. "Clara disappeared with him. They don't want me found. If we can't find them, the police certainly can't. So we just wait." Vivien didn't have an answer. They had exhausted all their options. Just then her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and gasped. "It's Jason. He contacted me." Kinsey shot up. "Quick, what did he say?" Vivien opened the message. He was asking about Zoe's condition. She quickly typed back that, according to the doctors, Zoe was in a vegetative state. His reply came instantly. "Are you sure?" "Yes," Vivien wrote. "I saw her myself." Seeing the exchange, Jason's expression grew grim. Vivien wouldn't lie to him. So Zoe really was a vegetable. A vegetable couldn't plot revenge. Did that mean this had nothing to do with her? "What did she say?" Clara asked. Jason handed her the phone. Clara read the message, her brow furrowing. If it wasn't Zoe, then who was it? Or maybe Jason's suspicion was just that, a paranoia-fueled mistake. "Darling," Clara said softly, "maybe we misunderstood Kiki." Jason was beginning to wonder the same thing. "Maybe," he admitted with an embarrassed smile, "but it's always better to be safe than sorry. As long as you're okay." His words, half joking and half serious, warmed her heart. She could listen to him say things like that for the rest of her life. The thought made her inwardly cringe. When had she become so sentimental? Well, since it was a false alarm, I can relax, she said. Just as the words left her mouth, Ava's frantic voice came from outside. Mrs. Sterling. Sir, there's a problem. The door flew open, and Ava rushed in. The Carringtons people showed up right after we left. The color drained from Jason's face. So his guess had been right, which meant Zoe wasn't dead, and she definitely wasn't a vegetable. He immediately relayed this to Vivien, explaining how the Carringtons had shown up at their exact location. Without Zoe providing the intel, how could they have found them? Vivien fell silent. Kinsey, who had read the messages over her shoulder, spoke up. I think Jason's right, she said, her expression serious. I can have someone investigate Zoe's situation. If she's faking, I'll drag her out of that hospital myself. She was furious. How dare that woman try to hurt Jason? Vivien nodded in agreement. I'll make the call right now, Kinsey said, dialing her cousin Dr. Alan Luo. She explained the situation and asked him to check on Zoe. He agreed immediately. It was his day on duty. He hadn't paid much attention to Zoe's case before, but he pulled up her chart. It all looked legitimate. Severe burns, deep coma. He headed for the separate ICU building, changed into scrubs, and made his way to Zoe's high-security private room. Just as he reached the door, another doctor was coming out. Dr. Luo recognized him. Dr. Zhou, the head of the burn unit. Dr. Zhou. Dr. Luo said politely. Is the patient in this room, Zoe Sue? Dr. Zhou's hands tightened on the doorknob, his eyes darting up and down Dr. Luo's frame with intense suspicion. Yes, she is. She's my patient. Why? Dr. Luo offered a professional smile. Zoe is a friend of mine. I was hoping to check in on her. It was a plausible lie. Ordinarily, professional courtesy would grant him access. But Dr. Zhou flatly refused. I'm sorry, Dr. Luo. The patient is in a critical infection period. I can't risk contamination. You can visit when her condition improves. Dr. Luo's smile turned icy. Dr. Zhou, I'm well aware of ICU protocols. I've already scrubbed in. Are you suggesting I'm carrying a virus? It was a pathetic excuse. He was clearly being stonewalled. Dr. Luo tried to push past him, but Dr. Zhou physically blocked the door. I said no, Dr. Luo. She is my patient. If something happens to her, will you take responsibility? His tone was sharp, accusatory. Dr. Luo was out of options, but Zhou's defensiveness only confirmed his suspicions. Fine, Dr. Luo said, turning to leave. I'm very interested to see who will be held responsible when a problem does arise with your patient. As soon as he was out of sight, Dr. Luo called Kinsey and told her everything. Kinsey relayed the information from her cousin immediately. Jason's face was a cold mask. So Zoe is faking it. Kiki is her pawn. Clara's eyes flashed with a dangerous light. It seems this bodyguard needs to be properly debriefed. I want to see just how tough she is. Ava, bring her to us. I've already had her confined to her room, Jason said, dialing Ava's number. Ava, bring Kiki here. We need to have a chat. Ava received the order and went directly to Kiki's quarters. The door was locked from the inside. Ava didn't hesitate. With a single, powerful kick, she splintered the door frame and burst into the room. Kiki, panicked, was in the middle of smashing a heavy chair against the window, trying to create an escape route. Ava let out a cold, dismissive laugh. Useless. It's bulletproof glass. In a villa of this caliber, every precaution was taken. Trying to break out through a window was laughably naive. Realizing she was trapped, Kiki dropped the chair and lunged at Ava, her fists flying. Ava barely moved. She waited until the last possible second, then ducked under the punch and swept Kiki's legs out from under her. Before Kiki could recover, Ava signaled to the guards who had followed her. Tie her up and bring her. A few moments later, Ava shoved the bound and struggling Kiki onto the floor in front of Jason and Clara. Sir, Mrs. Sterling. She was trying to run. Despite being tied, Kiki tried to maintain a defiant facade. Nonsense. I was sent by Annie Lon to protect you. Why would I run? She was a trained operative, after all. Admitting guilt was a death sentence. Jason stared down at her, his voice devoid of warmth. Search her. Ava knelt and began a thorough pat-down. Kiki thrashed, but two guards pinned her shoulders to the floor. After a moment, Ava pulled a small, button-like object from Kiki's collar. She held it up for Jason to see. A tracker, sir. Jason's gaze remained fixed on Kiki. You have anything else to say? Who sent you? Kiki's jaw was clenched. She refused to speak. Jason gave a slight nod to Ava. Ava understood. She produced a dagger, its blade glinting in the light. She pressed the cold steel against Kiki's cheek. Shall I start with your nose? Or Or should I just go for the eyes? The icy touch of the blade made Kiki tremble uncontrollably. I'll talk, she shrieked. It was Zoe. Zoe Sue sent me. Please, I'm begging you, let me live. I'll never do it again. Jason ignored her pleas. He looked at Ava, his expression grim. Take her away. Make sure it's clean. The words drained all the fight from Kiki. Her body went limp as she fainted. I'm an echelon operative, she mumbled weakly as the guards started to drag her out. You can't just... Ava silenced her by stuffing a cloth in her mouth. Later, Ava led the guards and their unconscious cargo to the villa's pristine rose garden. The flowers were in full bloom, their fragrance heavy in the air. She pointed to a lush bed of crimson roses. Right there, she commanded. Bury her. After Ava had left, Jason's expression remained heavy. Our location is compromised, he said. We need to prepare. Clara nodded, a new worry creasing her brow. Jason, Kiki was sent by Anilon. Do you think? He knew what she was asking. No, he said firmly, cutting her off. He took her shoulders, his grip reassuring. Anilon isn't involved. She was just careless. He went to find Anilon immediately, explaining what had happened. Anilon was horrified and deeply apologetic. Jason, I am so sorry. I should have vetted her more carefully. I never imagined she could have been turned. She promised to triple the security around the villa, personally screening every new staff member. On his way back, Jason ran into Ava. It's done, she reported. He nodded, then stopped her. One more thing. Find me the best, most discreet obstetrician in the country. Someone with a clean record. I want them here on standby. Clara was almost 9 months along. He couldn't afford to take any chances. Ava's professional mask softened into a genuine smile. Right away, sir. She was relieved to see him taking such good care of Clara. Their relationship seemed stronger than ever. Meanwhile, at the Zurich airport, Brooke, Lynn, and Mr. Lee stepped out into the crisp Swiss air. Mr. Lee, dragging their luggage, looked around, bewildered. Miss Lynn, do you actually have news of Jason? Brooke shook her head, a strange, confident smile on her face. No, but the baby and I have a psychic connection. I can feel him. He's here, and I'm going to rescue him from that evil woman. Mr. Lee sighed. He had no idea where she got this confidence. Finding one person in an entire country was like finding a needle in a haystack. Baby, I'm here. I'm coming to save you, Brooke declared to the open air, a hand protectively on her stomach. Mr. Lee just looked on, utterly speechless. Before he could argue, Brooke's stomach growled loudly. Miss Lynn, we need to eat, he said, his voice laced with exasperation. If not for you, then for the child. Brooke's expression softened. He was right. Jason's baby needed to be protected. Okay, we'll eat. We can't let the baby go hungry. Daddy would be very upset. They found a small cafe inside the airport terminal and sat down. Mr. Lee brought back sandwiches and milk. Brooke took a large bite of her sandwich and grimaced. It tasted like cardboard. Nothing like the blueberry pies Jason used to make. The thought made her eyes well up again. Oh, baby, she murmured to her stomach. When will we see your daddy again? Mommy misses him so much. She felt a faint flutter in her abdomen and took it as a sign. She defiantly chugged her milk. I have to eat more, so you'll be more beautiful than that awful woman's baby. Then daddy will love you more. As she was lost in her one-sided conversation, her eyes suddenly fixed on the terminal entrance. Her mouth fell open. The Sue family. Those are the Sue family's men, aren't they? Mr. Lee followed her gaze. A group of men were carefully escorting a woman in a wheelchair out of the terminal. What are they doing in Switzerland? Brooke whispered. She couldn't make out the woman's face, but she knew something was wrong. Mr. Lee, we have to follow them. I have a bad feeling about this. They jumped into a taxi, and Brooke urged the driver to follow the black sedan that had just pulled away. Half an hour later, the sedan stopped in front of a sprawling, secluded villa. Brooke and Mr. Lee got out of their taxi and crept closer, hiding behind a row of large trees. To their astonishment, the man who came out to greet the arrivals was the patriarch of the Carrington family. Miss Lynn, Mr. Lee whispered. The Sue and Carrington families have been bitter rivals for decades. What are they doing together? He paused, a look of dawning horror on his face. Quentin Carrington was killed by Jason, and Zoe Sue's family also died at his hands. Could it be? They've joined forces to get revenge. Just then, the men lifted the woman from the car and placed her in the wheelchair. Her face was heavily scarred from burns, but there was no mistaking her. Zoe, Brooke gasped. It's Zoe Sue. But she's supposed to be a vegetable. They edged closer, straining to hear the conversation. Mr. Carrington, Zoe said, her voice raspy but clear, I've sent you Jason's location. The rest is up to you. Brooke's heart hammered in her chest. Zoe had Jason's location. She turned to Mr. Lee, her eyes wide with a triumphant, manic glee. I knew it. The baby told me he was here. We really do have a connection. Mr. Carrington smiled coldly. Rest assured, Miss Sue. This time, I will handle them personally. As the Carringtons prepared to leave, Brooke slipped back to their taxi. Follow those cars, she told the driver, pressing a thick wad of cash into his hand. A convoy of 5 black cars pulled out of the villa. Brooke watched them go, her body trembling with excitement. I'm going to see him. I'm finally going to see my baby. They've certainly increased their security, Zoe had warned Mr. Carrington. Take more men than you think you need. She then added, a venomous smile twisting her scarred features. And if by some chance you fail, I have a second plan in motion. I'll have Clara's grandmother taken. I hear they're very close. A threat to the old woman will bring Clara to her knees. Meanwhile, at Jason's villa, a team of Switzerland's top obstetricians had just arrived. Jason had Ava introduce them to Clara, then sent them to their prepared quarters to wait on standby. As they left, he noticed one of the doctors lingering, his eyes furtively scanning the layout of the room. He brushed the thought aside. With the medical team in place, he could finally relax a little. He sat beside Clara, gently stroking her swollen belly. You just rest, honey. Soon, we'll get to meet our babies. I can't wait to be a dad. Clara smiled, a rare, genuine smile that lit up her face. They'd better look like me. Of course, he said, laughing. Whatever my beautiful wife wants. Their tender moment was shattered by the shrill ring of Clara's phone. She looked at the screen, and her smile vanished. Who is it? Jason asked, seeing her expression darken. Her voice was ice. Brooke Lynn. Jason froze. She's calling you? What for? Here, let me answer it. You shouldn't be bothered with. Clara shot him a look that could freeze fire. What you so nervous about? Worried I'll eat your little girlfriend? Her voice was dangerously calm. The mention of Brooke's name was like a switch, flipping her mood from serene to stormy. What? No, of course not, Jason stammered, holding his hands up in surrender. You're the only girlfriend I have, honey. The phone continued its incessant ringing. With a pointed, challenging look at Jason, Clara answered the call and put it on speaker. Brooke's frantic voice erupted from the phone. Clara, Zoe Sue isn't dead. She gave your location to the Carringtons. They're on their way there right now to hurt you and my baby. Baby? She called him her baby? Clara's eyes narrowed into slits as she glanced at Jason, who was suddenly fascinated by a spot on the ceiling. Brooke was still rambling, but Clara cut her off with 2 cold words. We know. Then she hung up. She tossed the phone onto the table with a loud clatter that echoed the sudden tension in the room. Baby, she repeated, her voice deceptively soft. You two have pet names for each other now. Jason chuckled nervously. Honey, you know she's crazy. You can't believe anything she says. Before he could dig himself a deeper hole, there was a sharp knock at the door. It was Ava. Sir, Mrs. Sterling. Mr. Carrington is at the gate. He says he's here to discuss a business partnership. Jason and Clara exchanged a look. They were here. Let him in, Clara said, her voice like steel. Let's see what kind of partnership he has in mind. A few moments later, Ava escorted Mr. Carrington into the room. He was alone. Mrs. Sterling, he began, his tone oozing false cordiality. I have a proposition that I believe will be mutually beneficial for the Carrington Group and Sterling Industries. His plan was to lure them out of the villa, where his men were waiting. Clara smiled, a chilling expression that didn't reach her eyes. A proposition? I'm more interested in your partnership with Zoe Sue. The color drained from Mr. Carrington's face. He stared at her, utterly stunned. She knew. She had been playing with him. His facade shattered. You bitch, he roared, lunging not at Jason, but directly at Clara's pregnant stomach. He had been searched for weapons, but he didn't need one. All he had to do was hit her, but he never got close. Ava moved like lightning, a single, brutal kick sending him sprawling to the ground. Guards swarmed in and pinned him. You killed my son, he screamed, his face contorted with rage. I'll see you both in hell. Jason stepped in front of Clara, shielding her. Your son was a greedy fool who got what he deserved. I was just taking out the trash. Mr. Carrington let out a wild, cackling laugh. You think you've won? You really think she'll let you live after what you've done? His eyes shifted to Clara. He's no better than my son, you know. At least Quentin didn't get another woman pregnant. Jason's blood ran cold. Mr. Carrington saw his advantage and pressed it. Go on, Clara. Ask him. Ask him who the father of Brooke Lynn's baby is. Clara's face went rigid. You're lying, she hissed. Am I? He taunted, a triumphant, malicious grin spreading across his face. Jason Miller has been sleeping with Brooke Lynn for months. She's carrying his child. And you, the great Clara Sterling, had no idea. You're just another stupid woman blinded by love. He turned his head toward Jason. Go on. Tell her I'm wrong. Jason stood frozen, the world tilting on its axis. It was over. Honey, he began, his voice barely a whisper. Let me explain. That was all the confirmation Clara needed. A wave of dizziness washed over her, and she stumbled, a sharp pain shooting through her abdomen. Jason lunged forward, catching her just as her knees gave way. Honey, don't get upset. It's bad for the babies, he pleaded, helping her to the bed. He shot a murderous look at Ava, who nodded and had the guards drag the still-laughing Mr. Carrington out of the room. The situation was dire, but it was about to get worse. From outside the villa, a shrill, piercing voice cut through the air. Jason, baby, are you in there? Did the Carrington men hurt you? Brooke Lynn had arrived. Clara pushed herself up, her eyes blazing with a fresh wave of fury. You told her where we were, didn't you? You brought her here. No, I swear I didn't. Jason pleaded, his face a mask of desperation. I have no idea how she found us. But Clara wasn't listening. The betrayal, the lies, Brooke's voice at the door. It was all a toxic cocktail of rage and heartbreak. At that moment, Ava came back upstairs. Mrs. Sterling, Miss Lynn refuses to leave. She's threatening to set fire to the grounds if she can't see him. Clara's laugh was brittle. Fine, let her in. She stalked to the door and threw it open. Brooke stood on the threshold, her face flushed and anxious. Clara, you're okay. Where's Jason? Her eyes darted past Clara and landed on him, a relieved smile spreading across her face. She tried to push past, but Clara blocked her way. Clara's gaze was glacial as she looked Brooke up and down, her eyes finally coming to rest on Brooke's slight but noticeable baby bump. You're pregnant. It wasn't a question. Brooke flinched, suddenly losing her bravado. You know, it seems I'm the last to know many things, Clara said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. The dignified Miss Lynn, sneaking around behind my back. How pathetic. Stung, Brooke's bravado returned. It's not pathetic. It's true love. He loves me, and I love him. You're the one who forced him to stay with you. Clara turned her cold gaze on Jason. Choose, she said simply. Her or me? Jason felt the walls closing in. Ava, standing behind him, discreetly pressed the tip of a dagger into his back. A clear signal from Clara. There was no escape. He took a deep breath. She's carrying my child. The admission hit Clara like a physical blow. She swayed, and Ava rushed to steady her. She had known, but hearing him say it aloud shattered the last of her composure. It was a mistake, honey, Jason said quickly, his words tumbling out. I was poisoned, the cryotoxin. It was the only way to get the antidote. I never meant for it to happen. A mistake you kept secret, Clara whispered. Fine. You want to take responsibility? Then take it. Ava. Yes, Mrs. Sterling. For the sake of the babies, give him a clean death. Ava raised the dagger. Jason's life flashed before his eyes. This was it. She was actually going to kill him. Suddenly, a phone rang, slicing through the tension. It was Clara's. Ava paused, looking at her boss. It's Zoe, Clara said, her voice flat. She answered. Zoe's gleeful, raspy voice filled the room. Clara, did you enjoy my little gift? I thought you should know about Brooke's happy news. How does it feel to love someone so much, only to be betrayed? I find it wonderfully entertaining. She laughed. Though, I'm a bit disappointed. I thought for sure a shock like that would make you Miss Scary. You have a death wish, Clara hissed. Perhaps, Zoe purred. But right now, I'm the one holding all the cards. Your grandmother, for instance. She's with me, and I'd hate for anything to happen to the old woman. Clara went pale. What do you want? Simple. One of those new doctors you hired works for me. I want you to go with him and have an abortion. You're 2 babies for my 3 family members. A fair trade, I think. If you refuse, well, let's just say your grandmother won't be seeing another sunrise. Don't do it, Brooke shrieked, for once horrified on Clara's behalf. But Clara's face was set like stone. Done, she said, her voice hollow. Excellent choice, Zoe chirped and hung up. Jason's mind was racing. Clara, don't listen to her. It's a trick. I have men protecting your grandmother. There's no way Zoe could have gotten to her. He tried calling a matriarch, but the phone went straight to voicemail. His heart pounded, but he forced himself to think. Wait, your grandmother has a life-monitoring device with a panic button. Her vitals are perfectly normal. If she were in danger, she would have activated it. Just then, the suspicious doctor stepped forward. Mrs. Sterling, we should proceed. Miss Sue was very clear about the 1-hour time limit. Something inside Jason snapped. In one fluid motion, he snatched a gun from a nearby guard, aimed, and fired. The doctor's head exploded in a spray of red. He fell to the floor without a sound. Everyone stared in shock. "This is my house," Jason snarled, his eyes blazing with a terrifying rage. "You don't give the orders here." The gunshot, the shock, the emotional turmoil. It was too much for Clara's body. She let out a sharp gasp, her hands flying to her stomach. A gush of fluid soaked her dress. Ava was the first to react. "Mrs. Sterling, your water just broke." The world descended into chaos. "Get her inside. My wife is having the babies." Jason yelled. He turned to Ava. "Get to the airport now. Dr. Luo's flight should be landing. I arranged for him to come, just in case. On the way, call Vivien and Kinsey. Tell them to find the matriarch now." The villa transformed into a makeshift delivery room. Clara's labor was brutal and unforgiving. Twins were always a higher risk, and her body, weakened by the cryotoxin, was struggling to keep up. The bedsheets were stained with sweat and blood. Outside the room, Brooke watched, her face pale with terror. Giving birth looked like a horror movie. Auntie Lon put a comforting arm around her. "It's worth it in the end, dear," she said softly. "When you hold your baby, you'll forget all the pain." Meanwhile, in New York, the matriarch's bodyguards finally got Ava's frantic call. Worried by the silence from the beauty salon, they kicked down the door to find the matriarch calmly sitting on a chair, her dragon head cane resting on her lap. On the floor before her was a beautician, unconscious, with a massive lump on her head. "What's all the fuss?" the matriarch demanded. "This silly girl tried to rob me. I handled it." When Ava explained that the beautician was Zoe's assassin and that Clara was now in premature labor from the stress, the old woman's calm demeanor vanished. "Book me the first flight to Switzerland," she roared. Back at the villa, Ava returned with Dr. Luo, Kinsey, and Vivien in tow. They arrived to a scene of controlled panic. "The first baby's head is stuck," one of the local doctors exclaimed. "Mrs. Sterling is losing too much blood. We have to perform a C-section to save the babies, but I'm not sure she'll survive the surgery." He turned to Jason. "Mr. Miller, you need to make a choice. Your wife or your children." Jason felt the air leave his lungs. Before he could answer, Dr. Luo pushed his way to the bedside. He took Clara's pulse, his expression grave. "Her chi is dangerously weak," he murmured. He then took charge. "Prepare a water birth. The buoyancy may help relieve the pressure and reposition the baby. Kinsey, help me prepare a vitality-boosting tonic." They moved Clara into a large tub of warm water. The change was almost immediate. The tension in her body eased slightly. Kinsey carefully helped her drink the bitter concoction Dr. Luo had prepared. Jason never left her side, his hand gripping hers. Her eyes fluttered open, hazy with pain. "Jason," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Do you love me? Or was it all just a performance?" The question caught him off guard. Did he love her? Their entire relationship had been a contract, a transaction. But seeing her like this, hovering between life and death, the answer was suddenly, painfully clear. He hesitated for a fraction of a second too long. A single tear escaped from the corner of her eye. She knew the answer. Then his voice, firm and resolute, cut through her despair. "I love you." He leaned closer, forcing her to look at him. "I didn't want to admit it, but seeing you like this, I know I can't lose you. If you died, it would destroy me. So you're not allowed to die, Clara. Do you hear me?" A flicker of her old fire returned to her eyes. The pain was still immense, but his words were a lifeline. "If I die," she breathed, "will you miss me like you missed Vivien?" "No," he said fiercely, "because you're not going to die. You and are going to live for a very, very long time. I won't give you the chance to be missed." A faint smile touched her lips. At that moment, one of the doctors shouted, "Push! I can see the head." Clara squeezed Jason's hand, a new wave of strength surging through her. She pushed with everything she had left. And then, the sound of a baby's cry filled the room. Jason was a father. The thought was overwhelming, a mix of sheer terror and elation. Outside the bathroom, the women heard the cry and broke into relieved cheers. But Clara had given everything. Her body went limp, and her eyes rolled back as she fainted. "Dr. Luo, what's wrong with her?" Jason cried, panic seizing him. "She's only exhausted," Dr. Luo said calmly. "But she's not done yet. There is another." He was right. Minutes later, with a final, agonizing push, a second, smaller cry joined the first. After the babies were cleaned and swaddled, and Clara had been moved back to the bed, the doctors brought them to her. "Two beautiful, healthy girls, Mr. Miller," Jason took one of the tiny bundles, his hands trembling. The baby was so small, so fragile. He brought her to Clara, who had regained consciousness. "Look, honey," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Look at our daughter." Clara reached out a trembling hand to touch the baby's cheek, tears of joy and relief streaming down her face. All the pain, all the betrayal, it all melted away in that one perfect moment. Ava entered the room, beaming. "Sir, the matriarch is safe." She subdued the attacker herself. "She's on a flight now." The final weight lifted from Jason's shoulders. But relief quickly gave way to a cold, simmering fury. "I will not let Zoe get away with this," he growled. "Ava, put out the word. A $50 million bounty on Zoe, Sue. I want her found. Alive." The sum was staggering, but Ava didn't bat an eye. "Yes, sir." As Ava left to make the arrangements, Vivien stepped forward. "I'll help," she said quietly. "I know our methods." She then looked pointedly at Brooke, who was staring into the room, looking lost. "Brooke, you know where Zoe's villa is. You should take us there. We need your help to track her down." Brooke looked confused. "But I want to stay here with Jason." Auntie Lon gently steered her toward the door. "Go on, dear. They need you. We'll take care of things here." Vivien practically had to drag the protesting Brooke out of the villa, giving Jason a subtle, understanding look as she left. Finally, after Dr. Luo and Kinsey also departed, the room was quiet. Clara turned her back to Jason, the anger from before returning. He sat on the edge of the bed, feeling helpless. "Honey, are you hungry? I can make you something." She ignored him. Suddenly, one of the babies in the bassinet started to cry. Clara picked her up, but the wailing only grew louder. She rocked her, she shushed her, but nothing worked. "Here," Jason said softly. "Let me try." Reluctantly, she handed the screaming infant to him. The moment the baby was in his arms, she stopped crying. She blinked up at him and let out a tiny gurgle. Clara stared, dumbfounded. "See?" Jason whispered to the baby. "No need to cry. Daddy's here." Just then, the other twin woke up and started crying. Clara reached for her, but the baby wailed even more furiously. Exasperated, Clara let Jason take that one too. Instantly, silence. The second baby looked up at him and broke into a gummy smile. Jason looked from one twin to the other, a slow, dawning realization on his face. He was hopelessly, completely outnumbered. Jason sat on the bed, a baby tucked into the crook of each arm, a sense of profound doom settling over him. It was clear these two tiny creatures had already inherited their mother's tyrannical streak. Clara, watching him, finally broke her silence, a hint of amusement in her voice. "The blue ribbon is Lila. The red one is Liana. Lila is the older sister." "Hello, Lila," Jason said softly. The baby blinked at him. "And hello, Liana. I'm your dad." He held them up so they could see each other. "This is your sister. You two need to play nice. No fighting." As if on cue, Liana kicked Lila. Lila, not to be outdone, smacked Liana in the face with her tiny fist. "Geese on sight. All right, that's enough. If you two don't behave, Daddy will have to spank your little butts." He tried to look stern. The twins just stared at him, unimpressed, before Lila started squirming, trying to burrow deeper into his arms. Liana, seeing her territory invaded, kicked her again. A full-blown kicking war erupted in his lap. Okay, truce." He separated them, placing them on the bed. The moment Lila's head touched the mattress, she let out a deafening wail. He quickly picked her up. Then Liana started screaming, her cry even louder. It was a hostage situation. Fine, you win. I'll hold both of you." He scooped them back up, a pair of tiny, victorious dictators. He was doomed. Meanwhile, across Switzerland, Zoe Sue received a call. The matriarch was safe. Her mole at the villa was dead. Her plan was in ruins. "Pack everything. We're leaving now," she snapped at her remaining subordinate. A new plan was forming in her mind, one born of desperation. She took off her coat and hat and forced them onto the man. "You're going to be me. Get in the car, drive out the front gate, and lead them away." The man's eyes widened in terror. "Miss Sue, I have a family. They'll kill me." Zoe pressed the cold barrel of a pistol to his temple. "They might. I definitely will. Your choice." Trembling, the man put on the disguise and sped out of the villa's main gate. From their stakeout position, Brooke saw the car. There she is. She's getting away. Ava and Brooke jumped into their car and gave chase. Vivien, however, hesitated. Jason's warning about Zoe's cunning echoed in her head. This felt too easy. While the others pursued the decoy, she slipped around to the back of the villa, hiding in the shadows. Minutes later, the villa's back gate creaked open. Zoe, alone in her wheelchair, began to wheel herself out into the alley. "Going somewhere, little sister?" Zoe froze. She turned to see Vivien leaning against the wall, a cool, knowing smile on her face. The whole country is looking for you, Zoe. Jason put a $50 million price on your head. There's nowhere left for you to run. Realization dawned in Zoe's eyes. It was over. With a final, hateful glare, she pulled out her pistol and pressed it to her own head. You think you've won, Vivien? He'll never love you, she spat. Before she could pull the trigger, Vivien moved in a blur, disarming her with a sharp twist of her wrist. The gun clattered to the ground. You don't get to decide when you die, Vivien said, her voice chillingly calm as she tied Zoe's hands. Jason does. Ava's car screeched to a halt, boxing in the lead vehicle along with several others. They were cornered, with a sheer cliff dropping off just ahead. Seeing no escape, Zoe Sue's driver surrendered. Ava leaped out her car, heart pounding. This is it. We got her. She yanked open the door and froze. It wasn't Zoe. It was a man. Where is she? Where did Zoe go? Before Ava could get an answer, Brooklyn came running up, her voice a furious hiss. Get Zoe out of there and bring her to Babe. She has a death wish, trying to hurt my babe. I'm not letting her get away with it. Ava dragged the decoy driver out of the car. Where's Zoe? She snapped. The man dropped to his knees, pleading. Ma'am, I swear I don't know. She made me dress like her. Said she'd kill me if I didn't. I have a wife and kids, please. I had no choice. Brooke finally got a good look at him, and her face contorted with rage. Before he could finish his sentence, she slapped him hard across the face. You bastard. If Zoe got away, I'll kill you, and it won't be pretty. Now talk. Where is she? I don't know. I swear I don't know. The man wailed, tears streaming down his face. Brooke raised her hand again, but Ava stopped her. It's a waste of time. He's telling the truth. Zoe doesn't have a car, which means she can't be far. She's probably still near the villa. Without a second thought, Brooke said, Then what are we waiting for? Let's go back. We can still catch her. They scrambled back into their car, whipped it around, and sped back toward the villa. In the distance, Brooke spotted two figures at the entrance. One was in a wheelchair. It was Zoe. Zoe. It's really her. I can see her plain as day. Brooke pointed, her cheeks flushed with excitement. Ava saw her too, and floored it. By the time they screeched to a stop, Vivien had already wheeled Zoe over, briefly explaining what had happened. All that mattered was that they had her. They wasted no more time, loaded Zoe into their car, and headed straight for the villa where Jason and Clara were staying. Meanwhile, Jason Miller was being systematically dismantled by two tiny tyrants. Lila and Liana were in a league of their own. They clung to him, demanding to be held, and would accept no substitutes, not even Clara. He'd hold one, then the other, a never-ending cycle of bouncing and swaying. A break? He couldn't even find 30 seconds for a bathroom trip. Were these two little angels sent to torture him? Clara, exhausted from childbirth and sedated by a calming tonic from Dr. Lua, was fast asleep. The babies, however, were wide awake, their big, dark eyes sparkling with boundless energy. Jason held one in each arm, rocking mechanically. Please, he whispered, just go to sleep. Daddy hasn't even eaten. I'm hungry, I'm tired. Look, your mom's asleep. Sleeping is a wonderful thing. Be good just for a little while. He was talking to himself, on the verge of a breakdown. Daddy needs a break, too. You're going to wear me out. If you break your daddy, you won't have a daddy anymore. He was so exhausted he was starting to see spots. But the two little bundles in his arms, perfect as porcelain dolls, just stared up at him with clear eyes and flashed matching, chillingly psycho little smirks. A jolt went through him. Oh, hell no. They understood me. They're doing this on purpose. Definitely on purpose. Jason sighed, looking up at the ceiling. He wanted to die. Just as he was about to give up on life, the matriarch arrived. He was in the bedroom with the twins, so he didn't see her come in. Clara's grandmother, worried sick, had rushed inside and demanded to know how her granddaughter was. After a bodyguard assured her Clara was fine, she'd breathed a sigh of relief and asked to be taken to see the new arrivals. Jason heard them coming and rushed out to meet them, the babies bouncing in his arms and giggling. He looked at the old woman like she was a rescuing angel, a desperate, fawning smile plastered on his face. Grandma, you're here. Mother and daughters are all safe and sound. Lila and Liana are perfectly healthy. Before the matriarch could respond, he practically shoved the babies into her arms. Look, aren't your two great-granddaughters just the cutest? They're cute enough to kill a man, and I'm about to be their first victim. The matriarch, her attention completely captured by the twins, didn't notice his desperation. She held the two tiny babies, her heart melting. Wonderful. I've waited so long for this day. The Sterling family finally has its next generation, she exclaimed, planting a kiss on each of their cheeks. They were so soft, so precious. The old woman was overjoyed. Hello, my sweet babies. Grandma's here now, and I'm going to spoil you rotten. All you have to do is grow up safe and sound. Leave everything else to Grandma. If anyone gives you trouble, you just tell me, and I'll take care of them. Jason, listening from the side, felt his mouth twitch. These two were the little terrors. The world was lucky if they didn't bully anyone else. Seeing the babies reminded the matriarch of her granddaughter. And Clara? Is she all right? Was she hurt? She's fine, Jason said. Just tired. She's sleeping now. Tears of joy streamed down the old woman's face. Good. As long as Clara and the babies are safe, that's all that matters. She had been waiting for this day for so long. Thank God Clara had delivered 2 healthy babies. The matriarch beamed, her heart overflowing. Enjoy them, Grandma, Jason thought, a triumphant grin spreading across his face as he began to sidle away along the wall. You have fun with your precious great-granddaughters. I'm out. This was his one chance at freedom, and he was taking it. Grandma, my stomach's a little upset. Can you watch the babies for me? He said, already halfway to the door. He was a fugitive fleeing the scene of the crime. If he didn't escape now, before the tiny dictator started screaming again, he never would. Before she could answer, Jason was about to make a break for it. But the matriarch was sharp. She caught the look of pure relief on his face and frowned. What's gotten into him? He doesn't look like a happy new father. He looks like he just offloaded 2 heavy burdens. Jason, she called out just as he was about to bolt. Yes. He stopped, defeated. What is it, Grandma? She looked him up and down, her gaze piercing. Why are you running? Are you not happy to be a father? You look like you can't get away from them fast enough. Geez on sight. Grandma, you've got it all wrong. Of course I'm happy. It's just, these 2 are a handful. They only want me to hold them, no one else. I've been holding them all day. I'm dead on my feet, and they fight over territory, so both my hands are always full. The matriarch looked surprised. Just then, as if on cue, the babies in her arms started to cry. She tried to soothe them, but they only wailed louder. Jason shrugged. See? I wasn't lying. Babies, what's wrong? Grandma's here. But no matter how she cooed, the twins screamed bloody murder, each trying to outdo the other until they were gasping for breath. The matriarch had never seen anything like it. Flustered, she turned to Jason for help. Do something. What do they want? What do they want? They want their territory. They want their daddy. With a sigh, Jason walked back and took the babies from her. Sure enough, the moment they were back in his arms, they stopped crying, the change as quick and dramatic as a mask swap in a Chinese opera. And they immediately began jostling for position, kicking at each other if one encroached on the other's space. Jason, expressionless, held one in each arm and mechanically separated them. The matriarch in a nearby maid found the scene amusing and couldn't help but laugh. They're so adorable. They just love their daddy so much, one of the maids said with a smile. Jason wanted to scream. You think this is adorable? You try it. This isn't love. It's a death sentence. Grandma, look at me. How am I supposed to sleep? Look at my beautiful eyes. They've got rings like a panda's. And these 2 have endless energy. A few more days of this, and they'll be happy, but I'll be a wreck. If this kept up, he'd have a psychotic break long before Clara ever got postpartum depression. The matriarch saw his point. She frowned and had a maid bring her luggage. From a large, bulging bag, she pulled out an assortment of toys she'd brought for the twins. From the pile, she extracted 2 custom-made, front-facing baby carriers, soft, pouch-like vests. She hung them around Jason's chest. Then, she placed 1 baby in each pouch. Nestled against Jason's chest, the twins finally quieted down. His hands were free, but now he had 2 soft little heads peeking out of the pouches on his torso. He looked ridiculous. The maids burst out laughing again. Jason was speechless. Was this his life now? A human kangaroo. As everyone was chuckling, Ava, Brooke, and Vivien entered, wheeling in the bound figure of Zoe Sue. They took one look at Jason and his new attire and broke into laughter, too. Jason felt like the lone clown in a circus of beautiful women. Seriously, what did I do in a past life to deserve this? Seeing Clara's babies hanging from Jason's chest, Brooke pouted, a flicker of jealousy in her eyes. She subconsciously touched her own stomach, sending a silent message to the baby inside. See, little one? That's your daddy. Don't be mad. When you're born, he'll love you just as much. So grow quickly and come out soon to meet him. She imagined Jason holding her baby just like that. But then another thought soured her mood. She was over a month pregnant, and Jason hadn't even gone with her for a single checkup. A wave of bitterness washed over her. She was pregnant, too. She deserved some care. She didn't want much, just a tiny fraction of his time. Vivien, on the other hand, saw the two little bundles of joy and felt her heart melt. The twin struck a tender chord deep inside her. She walked closer, her gaze soft. She had once dreamed of having a baby just like this, but that dream was gone. Seeing these two, Jason's children, filled her with a genuine, heartfelt affection. It was like looking at her own. "They're so cute," she said, her voice barely a whisper. The babies stared back at her with their big eyes, their lips curving into innocent smiles that could heal all the world's sorrows. "Congratulations, Jason," she said softly, a faint smile on her lips. Jason could only manage a wry nod. Everyone was congratulating him, but no one knew the hell he was going through. Ava crowded in, peering at the twins. "Look, this one looks like the boss. And this one looks like him," she announced, as if she'd discovered a new continent. "That's Lila, and that's Liana," Jason clarified. Besides Clara, he was the only one who could tell them apart. With that, everyone gathered around the babies, cooing and admiring them. The atmosphere was warm and joyful. In the corner, forgotten, sat Zoe, tied to her wheelchair. She watched the happy scene, her heart seething with hatred. Why did they get their happy family reunion while she was left alone in the world? A vengeful ghost whose parents and brother were dead. And it was all their fault, Jason's and Clara's. It wasn't fair. It was so unfair. Hate burned in Zoe's eyes, a fire hot enough to incinerate everything before her. But she knew she had lost, utterly and completely. She was nothing more than a stray dog, bound and waiting for her sentence. Perhaps sensing her cold stare, Jason's eyes flickered toward her. "Zoe, finally got you." A cold smile touched his lips, and a murderous glint flashed in his sharp eyes. It was time to deal with Zoe. Jason turned to Vivien. "Thank you," he said. If it hadn't been for her quick thinking, Zoe might have escaped again. A hint of sadness touched Vivien's heart. He didn't need to be so formal with her. You were polite to strangers, and she didn't want to be a stranger to him. Still, she managed a gentle smile. "Go take care of things. I'll help with Lila and Liana." She glanced at Zoe, knowing exactly what he had to do. Jason nodded. "Okay, thanks." With Vivien, the matriarch, and Brooke all there to help with the twins, he knew they would be fine. He turned his cold gaze back to Zoe and said sharply, "Ava." Ava knew her boss was about to give an order. "Yes, sir. Take her out to the rose garden. Wait for my command." "Understood, sir." Finally, he's going to deal with this monster. Ava didn't even look at Zoe as she pushed the wheelchair outside. They passed through a covered walkway, and the rich, intoxicating scent of roses filled the air. Flowers of every color swayed in the breeze, a dreamlike vista. In a way, Zoe was lucky to be buried here. Once Ava had taken Zoe away, Jason handed the twins over to the matriarch and Vivien. The room behind him was filled with laughter and warmth, the happiness he was determined to protect. If protecting it meant getting blood on his hands, so be it. He glanced one last time at his family, then walked out with grim resolve. Ava and Zoe were waiting for him in the rose garden. Zoe already knew this was the end, but her heart was still consumed by rage. Her eyes, burning with a venomous hatred, were like daggers aimed straight at Jason's heart. "Jason, you've got me. I have nothing to say. But even if you kill me, I'll haunt you as a ghost." Jason was unfazed. He dragged a chair over and sat down in front of her, his posture casual. He stared at her, sighed, and spoke slowly. "Zoe, I've never understood. Why do you hate me and Clara so much? What did we ever do to you?" Zoe stared at him in disbelief, then burst into a chilling, maniacal laugh. When she finally stopped, her eyes were fixed on him. "Jason, cut the crap. Don't play the righteous victim with me. You know exactly what you did." Jason spread his hands in a gesture of confusion. "I really don't. So why don't you spell it out for me? Let's get it all out in the open. Even if you're going to die, you deserve to know why, right?" Her face twisted in a snarl. "You killed my parents. You killed my brother. Why should you get to live happily while they had to die?" she shrieked. "I have to get revenge. I have to kill you both." The burn scars on her face made her look even more terrifying, like a living corpse. Jason's expression remained calm. When she had finished her tirade, a mocking smile touched his lips. "So that's what this is about." Zoe's fury seemed to have exhausted her. "Of course, if it weren't for you, they'd still be alive, and I wouldn't be. Like this." Her voice dropped, filled with a profound sense of loss. Jason let out a long sigh, his tone pitying. "You poor, pathetic thing." Zoe didn't understand. She lifted her head, her eyes wide. "What did you say?" Jason crossed his arms. "That I killed your parents? That's hilarious. If they hadn't been so determined to kill us, I never would have touched them. And you? You don't even know the reason, and you jump straight to revenge. It's absurd. Zoe stared at him, refusing to believe it. Jason's voice suddenly turned sharp as ice. Your parents were the ones who plotted against us first. They tried to murder me and Clara. And another thing, do you know why you're still alive? It's because Vivien has been donating bone marrow to you this whole time. Zoe was stunned. She shook her head frantically. No, you're lying. Jason sneered. Ava, show her the proof. Ava took out her phone and displayed the evidence, document after document, including the records of Vivien's marrow donations. The screen swam before Zoe's eyes. If she hadn't been tied down, she would have collapsed. You were the one benefiting this whole time, yet you turn around and attack us, Jason said, his voice dripping with contempt. The truth is, you knew your parents were no good, but you chose to be blind. You forced yourself not to believe it and went out of your way to hurt others. He stood up, his words sharp and clear. So, Zoe, the one who deserves to die is you, not anyone else. Your whole family brought this on themselves. You have no one to blame but you. Zoe's spirit finally shattered. Her vision blurred, and she slumped forward, unconscious in her wheelchair. Jason didn't even glance at her. He gave a cold command. Clean it up. Don't make it too easy for her. He turned to leave, but at that moment, Zoe's eyes snapped open again. A shrill, tragic laugh escaped her lips. Ha, ha, ha. So it was all a lie. I was the one who was blind. I was wrong. Before Jason could react, a look of grim determination crossed her face. The next second, she coughed up a spray of blood and went limp. Ava rushed forward, but it was too late. Sir, she took poison. She killed herself. Jason's face was a mask of indifference. She got off easy. Clean it up, he ordered, and walked away without looking back. On the way back to the villa, his mind raced. Zoe's death was deserved. She had brought it upon herself. But at least she had cared about her parents. And him? His own memories were hazy, but he could faintly recall a time when his parents had loved him dearly. Now they were gone. The greatest sorrow in life is wanting to care for your parents when they are no longer there. If they were still alive, they would have adored Lila and Liana. Lost in thought, he was filled with an indescribable sadness. Suddenly, a figure darted out from the shadows and threw her arms around him, sobbing. Babe, I finally found you. I was looking everywhere for you. It was Brooke. I finally found this place, and I haven't even had a moment alone with you, she cried, her tears soaking his shoulder. All the anxiety and frustration she had bottled up came pouring out now that she had found him. Jason felt a pang of guilt. He patted her back, tried to soothe her. Okay, what are you crying for? You found me, didn't you? But do you have any idea how worried I was? I thought something had happened to you. I told myself if anything happened to my babe, I wouldn't want to live anymore. She looked up at him, her beautiful eyes shimmering with tears. And you? You're hiding out here, enjoying your little world for two, without a care for me. Her pout deepened, her sense of grievance growing. She buried her face in his chest and started sobbing again. Jason knew she felt wronged. I know everything you're feeling, but there was nothing I could do. Besides, we're together now, aren't we? It's not like you'll never see me again. Stop crying. It's not good for the baby. The mention of the baby only made her angrier. So you do know I'm pregnant? She huffed. You know I'm pregnant, but you don't care about me at all. They were both pregnant, but Jason was doting on Clara while completely ignoring her. The difference in treatment was staggering. How could you not be upset? Is it because I'm healthy, so you don't have to worry about me? Maybe I should get sick. Maybe I should be so weak I can't even walk. Then would you care more? Would you stay with me? She didn't really want that. She just wanted his attention, a little bit of his concern. Jason tried to placate her. You can see how busy I've been lately. Get some time. When I have a moment, I'll clear things with Clara, and I'll take you to get those wedding photos you wanted. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a plastic toy ring, slipping it onto her finger. See? I got this just for you. Like it? At the sight of the ring, Brooke's tear-filled eyes widened, sparkling with delight. It was just a cheap toy, but to her, it was the most precious jewel in the world. She wouldn't trade it for billions. It was from her babe, just for her. It was a promise. It's beautiful. Babe, it's so beautiful, she said, holding her hand up, a brilliant smile on her face. In that moment, all her previous suffering vanished. She kissed the ring again and again. Babe, I love it. She was as happy as a child with a new toy. Just a toy ring? This woman is too easy to please, Jason thought, surprised. He'd bought it on a whim. If he'd known she was this easy to fool, he would have bought 1,000 of them. Just then, Brooke pouted again. I want you to come with me for a checkup. I've been pregnant for almost 2 months, and you haven't come with me once. We should be able to find out the baby's gender by now. Don't you want to know? She tugged on his arm, her voice pleading. Babe, I don't care. You have to come with me. Her head drooped, her voice lowering with a hint of sadness. You even went with Vivien? Why not me? I wanted to come with me. Worn down, Jason finally relented. Fine, fine. Once things settle down in a few days, I'll go to the hospital with you. Brooke was ecstatic. She threw her arms around him and kissed his cheek. Great. I knew you'd say yes. A faint lipstick mark now stained his face. But Brooke wasn't done. She clung to him, refusing to let go. I'm tired. I want Babe to carry me. Jason sighed. He was helpless against her. He scooped her up and started walking back toward the villa. Just then, Vivien, approaching from a distance, saw them. Jason was holding Brooke, listening to her with a look of infinite indulgence in his eyes. A wave of sorrow washed over Vivien. She knew Jason was only with Brooke because she was carrying his child. If she had gotten pregnant with his baby back then, would she be the one in his arms now? Would she be the one he doted on? But she wasn't. Fate was so unfair. Even though she loved him so deeply, all she could do was watch from afar. Hearing footsteps, Jason looked up and saw Vivien's lonely expression. He awkwardly set Brooke down and tried to act casual. What are you doing here? Is something wrong? Vivien forced a small smile, hiding her disappointment. The babies won't stop crying for their daddy. I was worried they'd hurt their throats, so I came to see what was going on. Jason nodded quickly. Okay, I'm on my way. In his haste, he forgot to wipe the lipstick from his face. Back in the room, Clara was awake, sitting up in bed, trying to soothe the twins. But they weren't having it. The two sisters were screaming their lungs out, each one louder than the last. Jason took a deep breath and hurried over. Babies, Daddy's back. Stop crying now. Clara saw him and asked casually, Where did you go? He had nothing to hide. I went to the rose garden. Took care of Zoe. He moved to take the twins, his movements practiced, and sure, nothing like a rookie dad. As expected, they quieted down in his arms, their cries turning into pathetic little sobs, as if complaining that their irresponsible father had abandoned them. Jason was exasperated. Daddy was wrong. I won't leave my babies again, okay? Watching him, Clara's heart stirred. He had worked so hard since the children were born. He was a new father with no experience, but his sincerity was obvious. He was trying his best. Jason was a responsible father. Her expression softened, a flicker of tenderness in her eyes. But just then, she saw it, something jarring on his face. Unless she was mistaken, it was a lipstick mark. Someone had kissed him. A shadow passed over Clara's eyes, but she didn't call him out on it. Instead, her gaze swept coldly across the other women in the room, a razor-sharp look that sliced past Vivien, Kinsey, and finally settled on Brooklyn. Vivien didn't notice. She was cooing at the babies, her eyes full of affection. Kinsey was busy trying to calm them with a gentle massage, clearly preoccupied. Besides, Kinsey hadn't left the room. That left Brooke. Clara's eyes locked onto her. Brooke was looking at the floor, her cheeks bright red, nervously fidgeting with her hands and avoiding everyone's gaze. What did she have to feel guilty about? Brooklyn, Clara said, her voice dangerously quiet. Brooke jumped, instinctively shrinking back. Why is some of your lipstick missing? Clara asked flatly. She was seething. Of course she knew it was Brooke, but to say nothing would make her look like a fool. Were they playing games right under her nose, thinking she was blind? Clara Sterling, sharp and decisive, would never swallow an insult like that. Brooke's face turned an even deeper shade of red. Her mind went completely blank. She just stood there, stammering, unable to form a coherent answer. Hearing Clara's question, Jason's heart dropped. He quickly turned his head and rubbed his cheek with his sleeve. Oh no, did Brooke leave evidence on my face? He'd rushed back in without even thinking about it. So, Clara had seen them? This was it. World War III was about to erupt. He frantically wondered if he should find a helmet, or maybe a hard hat, or better yet, an excuse to just run for it. As his mind raced, Brooke finally had a moment of clarity. She gestured toward the twins and said, I just love the babies so much. I was kissing them. Jason felt a vain throb in his forehead. You gotta be kidding me. Playing with words now? You think you're so clever? She knew perfectly well that wasn't the babe she meant. Was she insane? How dare she use that nickname in front of Clara? She had no idea how much Clara hated that word. Brooke, oblivious to his inner turmoil, continued with a cheerful smile. Look how cute they are. I'm so glad we didn't go through with the termination. My heart would have broken. At that, some of the tension drained from Clara. She remembered when Zoe had threatened her with the matriarch's life, demanding she terminate the pregnancy. It had been Brooke, in a moment of genuine emotion, who had begged her not to. Without that plea, she might have actually done it. And over the past few days, Clara could see that Brooke genuinely adored her two children. Besides, Brooke and the others had been a huge help during the birth. She decided to let it slide for now. Her expression softened, and she dropped the subject. Seeing that Clara wasn't going to explode, Jason was overjoyed. It was a miracle. Today was his lucky day. He should have bought a lottery ticket. He was lost in his triumphant thoughts when the babies in his arms started crying again. Hey, stop crying. Daddy's here. What's wrong now? He cooed, patting them, trying every trick in his new dad arsenal. But they wouldn't listen, their wails continuing unabated. Even Jason was at a loss. They were both premature, the matriarch said, a worried frown on her face. Could something be wrong? She suggested they get them checked out at a hospital, just in case. The thought that something might actually be physically wrong with the children sent a wave of panic through the room. Kinsey immediately called for Dr. Luo, asking him to come examine the twins. After a thorough checkup, Dr. Luo finally spoke. Don't worry, he said calmly. Both children are perfectly fine. A collective sigh of relief filled the room. However, Dr. Luo added, Liana's constitution is more like Clara's, so she's a bit weaker. With some proper care, she'll be perfectly all right. Despite his assurances, the babies continued to cry. Jason was at his wit's end. Dr. Luo, if they're fine, why won't they stop crying? Dr. Luo glanced at Jason with a knowing smile. Perhaps the children are just very fond of their father. It's normal for young children to be clingy. Usually, they cling to their mothers. It's rare for them to be so attached to their fathers. You're a special case. Another special case? Can't someone else have a turn? Jason groaned internally. I'm happy they like me, but I can't be the only one who can soothe them. He turned to the twins, exasperated. In my capacity as your father, I am officially warning you, Lila and Liana, are you trying to work me to death? If I collapse, there will be no one to take care of you. He paused, then softened his tone. So, you need to be good. That way, Daddy could be around to love you for a long, long time. To everyone's astonishment, the babies actually stopped crying. They blinked at Jason, mumbling softly as if in agreement. Did they actually understand him? They really stopped? Let me try, the matriarch said, delighted. She took Liana from Jason's arms. The baby just pouted a little, but remained quiet. They really listened to you, she said, beaming. With the babies healthy, the matriarch's mood lifted. But then she remembered Clara's condition. Dr. Luo, what about the cryotoxin in Clara's system? Dr. Luo considered for a moment. It's not an immediate concern. We can begin treatment when the babies are 2 or 3 months old. That was a relief to both the matriarch and Jason. After the scare with Zoe, everyone was grateful that mother and daughters were safe. The following days were peaceful but hectic. Jason was on official baby duty 3 times a day. Lila and Liana demanded his presence at set times, like tiny queens holding court. Other people had children. He had 2 little ancestors who required him to pay his respects thrice daily. But he was grateful. At least outside of those 3 sessions, he was a free man. A month passed in a blur. Bianca Sterling heard the news and came to visit. With Vivien, Kinsey, Brooke, and now Bianca, the villa was livelier than ever. If 3 women were a drama, 5 were a full-blown production. They busied themselves with the twins, one buying toys for Liana, another picking out clothes for Lila, which took a lot of the pressure off Clara. Perhaps motherhood had softened her, but Clara's personality had changed. She was no longer constantly angry with Jason. He was secretly thrilled. If he'd known this would happen, he would have gotten her pregnant sooner and saved himself a lot of misery. One day, after his baby-soothing duties were done, Jason announced he was going out to buy diapers. Brooke immediately blocked his path. Babe, where are you going? You promised you'd take me for a checkup. Another month had gone by, and her baby was now over 3 months old. Jason still hadn't accompanied her to a single appointment. Brooke was miserable. Now that she had him cornered, she wasn't letting him go. Jason hesitated, worried Clara would get angry. Let's go in a couple of days, he hedged. Brooke wasn't having it. Her eyes filled with tears. You always tell me to wait. How long do I have to wait? Until after the baby is born? I'm carrying your child too, you know. Are you just going to ignore me? Jason felt a pang of guilt. He was about to try and calm her down when a voice cut in. Go with her. But you have 1 day. You're back by tonight. Jason looked up, surprised. It was Clara. A month had passed, and her confinement period was over. During that time, Jason had been by her side constantly, helping with the babies, barely sleeping. Brooke, too, had helped a lot. Without them, Clara's weakened body would have given out. Today, the weather was nice, and with Vivien and the others watching the twins, she had decided to get some fresh air, only to walk into this scene. After a long moment of hesitation, she had spoken. Jason still didn't dare agree immediately. Is this a trap? If he said yes too quickly, she might explode. He shook his head, feigning humility. It's okay, honey. She's not in a rush. A couple more days is fine. Brooke didn't care. Hearing Clara's permission, she was overjoyed, a complicated mix of triumph and gratitude on her face. Well, thank you. She was an impatient person. She grabbed Jason's arm and started pulling him toward the door, not caring if he was ready or not. She'd been cooped up in the villa for over a month and was dying to get out, especially if it was just with Jason. It was a golden opportunity. In the driveway, she opened a car door, but Jason stopped her. We're in a foreign country, and I don't know the roads. Let's have Annie Lon drive us. Lately, Annie Lon had been scarce, having only appeared on the day the babies were born. Brooke wasn't thrilled with the idea of a chaperone, but as long as she got to go out with Jason, she'd take it. A few minutes later, Jason found Annie Lon and explained the situation. She readily agreed to drive them. The moment the car pulled away from the villa, Brooke joyfully opened the sunroof, letting the wind whip through her hair as she shouted with glee. Yay, babe is taking me for my checkup. Jason, fearing she'd fall out, pulled her back down into her seat and closed the roof. You're pregnant. You'll catch a cold. Brooke didn't care. She draped herself over him, refusing to let go. I'm just so happy. Aren't you happy to be out with me? Tell me, are you happy? She purred, her breath warm on his face. Happy, of course I'm happy, he mumbled. It wasn't entirely a lie. He had been exhausted for the past month and desperately needed a change of scenery. I want a kiss, she demanded, leaning in. She didn't care that Annie Lon was in the front seat. She planted a firm kiss on his cheek. Auntie Lon glanced in the rearview mirror, her expression puzzled. She thought Clara was Jason's wife. Who was this Brooke Lynn? Based on their intimacy, they were clearly not just friends. It was all very strange. Now you kiss me, Brooke insisted. Jason glanced at Annie Lon in the front, his face flushing. What's the big deal? We've already done it. What's a little kiss? Brooke said bluntly. The comment was so unexpected that Annie Lon almost swerved into a tree. Jason's face turned beet red. He wished he could bury his head in the sand. This woman had no filter. Did she have to announce to the world that they'd slept together? Annie Lon cleared her throat. Jason, I thought Clara was your wife. Jason nodded. She is. Clara is my wife. Annie Lon glanced at Brooke. And what is your relationship with Miss Lynn? She asked quietly. Jason squirmed. It's complicated. It's a long story. And the baby in Miss Lynn's belly. Annie Lon trailed off, realizing she might be overstepping. But Brooke had no such qualms. She stuck out her stomach proudly. Of course it's his baby. Annie Lon's jaw nearly hit the floor. So you're Jason's wife, too? Then what about Clara? Is polygamy legal in America now? Brooke snorted disdainfully. I'm not his wife yet, but I will be sooner or later. In truth, she would be willing to be his mistress just to stay by his side. But then, wouldn't her child suffer the same fate she had? She touched her belly. Why should she be the other woman? Who said she had to be? She knew Jason felt something different for her. With a little effort, the other women stood no chance. Once she and Jason were official, she had plenty of ways to make him love her. Maybe she should just tie him up? Or they could elope to a deserted island. Just the two of them, trapped together forever. She wouldn't even mind living like a savage for the rest of her life. She stared at Jason, imagining the two of them as castaways, a wicked little smile playing on her lips. Jason felt a chill run down his spine. Why was she looking at him like that? Did she want to eat him alive? A short while later, Annie Lon pulled into the hospital parking lot. This is a private maternity clinic, she explained as they got out. It's one of the best for prenatal care. People come from all over to have their checkups here. Hearing this, Brooke suddenly felt a wave of anxiety. Despite her excitement on the way over, the reality of the hospital made her nervous. She gripped Jason's hand tightly, her face pale. Babe, maybe we shouldn't do this. I'm scared. It's okay, Jason soothed. It's just a routine checkup. We're both healthy. I'm sure everything is fine. She's right, Annie Lon added. They're just going to check on the baby's development. It'll be over before you know it. Brooke looked up at Jason, her expression pitiful. You'll stay with me the whole time, right? Jason nodded. Of course. I'll be right here with you. Only then did she take a deep breath and let him lead her into the lobby. For Jason, for our baby, I can be brave. She told herself over and over that everything would be okay. Her baby, their baby, would be the healthiest, most beautiful child in the world. When they reached the obstetrics department, Brooke was supposed to go in for her exam, but she refused to let go of Jason's hand. She begged the doctor to let him come in with her. He's my husband. I can't do this without him. The doctor, won over by her pleading and a glance at Jason, finally agreed. Since it was her first prenatal visit, they ran a full battery of tests, checking everything from Brooke's health to the baby's development. Jason stayed by her side through it all, offering words of encouragement. You got this. You can do it. I'm right here. As she was about to enter the ultrasound room, Her hands were trembling. "Make a heart for me, babe," she said, her voice shaky. She made a heart shape with her hands, then mouthed the words, "I love you." Jason felt awkward. He'd never really done things like this. But to calm her nerves, he clumsily formed a heart with his own hands. Brooke saw it and broke into a radiant smile before lying down on the examination table. As long as her babe was with her, she had nothing to fear. Annie Lon, watching from the side, felt a strange warmth spread through her chest. At her age, she had forgotten what love looked like. Her relationship with Uncle Jiang had long since settled into a comfortable, familial bond. But seeing Jason and Brooke, she was touched. Maybe this was what love was supposed to be. After the ultrasound, there were more tests. By the time they were done, most of the day had passed. A short while later, the doctor returned with the results. "Mr. Miller, Mrs. Lin, congratulations. It's a girl." Jason and Brooke were thrilled. They both loved the idea of having a daughter. A small part of Brooke was disappointed, though. Clara had twins, but she was only having one. Still, as long as it was Jason's child, one was wonderful. Maybe their daughter would be even prettier, even cuter. As they were celebrating, the doctor's brow furrowed. "Mrs. Lin, you are in perfect health. It's just—" He trailed off. Their hearts leaped into their throats. Brooke's face went white. "Doctor, what do you mean? Is something wrong with the baby? I need my baby to be healthy. I don't care if something is wrong with me, but my baby has to be healthy." She looked on the verge of tears. "Tell me the baby is okay, right?" Jason's stomach was in knots, but he knew he had to be the strong one. He was her rock. He took a steadying breath. "Doctor, please be honest with us. We can handle it. Is there something wrong with the baby?" The doctor hesitated. "I just have a sense that the baby isn't very active. I can't be sure, but I recommend you get a second opinion from specialists back home." The world tilted. Brooke nearly collapsed, but Jason caught her, pulling her into his arms. "It's okay, don't panic. The doctor said it's probably nothing. As soon as we get back, we'll have Dr. Luo take a look. It's going to be fine." "Mr. Miller is right," the doctor added. "I'm just suggesting you get it checked out as a precaution. The baby is most likely fine." Anilon also helped to console her, and after a while, Brooke finally calmed down. Leaving the hospital, she was a different person. She got into the car without a word and stared out the window, lost in her own dark thoughts. She had finally gotten pregnant with Jason's baby. What would she do if something was wrong? All she wanted was to give him a healthy, beautiful child. A single tear rolled down her cheek. Jason didn't know what to say. He tried to comfort her. "Brooke, don't overthink it. The doctor said it's probably not a big deal. You know how they like to exaggerate things. I'm sure our baby is perfectly healthy, just like us." But nothing he said could lift her spirits. She just stared blankly out the window. Seeing her so miserable, Jason felt a pang of sympathy. "Let's not go back to the villa yet," he suggested. "Let's go out and have some fun. Maybe a distraction would help." The suggestion seemed to work. Brooke turned to him, her eyes still wet with tears, but a small smile touched her lips. No matter what, she was with her babe, and whenever she was with him, she was happy. "I want to eat something delicious," she said with a pout. "Done. Whatever you want, it's your call today." Jason told Anilon to drop them off at the nearest food festival and then head back. Anilon understood and readily agreed. As luck would have it was a Sunday, and the street fair was packed. The air was filled with the tantalizing aromas of countless different foods. Jason's stomach growled. After a month of eating at the villa, he was ready for some street food. "Lamb skewers. Babe, look, they have lamb skewers," Brooke exclaimed. Seeing her excitement, Jason bought a dozen. She took a bite, then held one up to his mouth. "You have some too, babe." He took a large bite. They walked through the crowded street, looking for all the world like a young couple in love. For a moment, Brooke felt a surge of happiness so intense it felt unreal. She stopped and stared at Jason, her eyes wide. A second later, tears started streaming down her face again. Jason was baffled. "What's wrong? You don't like it? We can get something else." She shook her head, her voice choked with emotion, and she threw herself into his arms. "Babe," she cried, clinging to him tightly. "What is it? Why are you crying now?" He was completely lost. A woman's moods were fickle, but Brooks seemed to operate on a different cosmic plane altogether. I'm too happy. It feels like a dream, and I'm scared I'm going to wake up. So that's what it is." "What are you talking about? I'm right here." "Stop crying. You'll ruin your makeup." She sniffled and pulled away. Just then, she saw a crowd gathered ahead. Curious, she dragged Jason over to see what was happening. It was a competition sponsored by a baby products company. The challenge was for couples to navigate an obstacle course together. The first to finish would win a prize. The grand prize was an electric baby rocking chair. Brooke's eyes lit up. "Babe, let's do it. It looks fun." Jason wasn't interested, but to humor her, he agreed. Brooke was ecstatic. She threw her arms around him and gave him a loud kiss on the cheek. Here in public, no one batted an eye. The race was about to start. 5 couples were lined up at the starting line, all holding hands tightly. Brooke gripped Jason's hand, leaning forward, ready to sprint. Jason gave her a mysterious smile. "Brooke, you want to win first place?" Her face was flushed with excitement. She nodded eagerly. "Yes, of course I want to win." "Good," Jason said confidently. "Then we'll win." Brooke was still worried. She wasn't a very fast runner. But Jason squeezed her hand reassuringly. "Don't worry. That rocking chair is ours." Another couple overheard him and shot him a dirty look. The man even gave him the middle finger. Brooke was furious. She was about to go after him. How dare he insult my babe? But Jason held her back. The starting gun fired. The man who had flipped him off shot out of the gate, dragging his partner behind him. But Jason was in no hurry. He simply scooped Brooke up into his arms and took off. "Babe, this is amazing." Brooke shrieked with surprise and delight as the wind rushed past them. Jason had gotten into college on a track scholarship. Running was second nature to him. He sprinted past the other couples with ease. They stared in stunned disbelief. The man with the middle finger watched in shock, cursing under his breath. He wanted to do a princess carry for his own girlfriend, but she was a 200-pound woman. He'd sooner have a hernia. The outcome was never in doubt. Jason and Brooke easily won first place. The host was completely charmed. "Congratulations to our flying husband and his beautiful wife. They are the undisputed champions." Brooke was blooming with happiness. "I have to ask," the host said into the microphone, "are you two newlyweds? Here on your honeymoon?" Brooke grabbed Jason's hand and proudly announced, "That's right. This is my husband, Jason Miller, and I'm his wife, Brooke Lynn." She wanted everyone to hear it. She was Jason's wife. This life, the next life, for all of eternity, she would be his woman. She turned to Jason, her eyes shining. "Jason, tell them. Am I your woman?" He was flustered by her intense gaze. Pathetic, he cursed himself. "I'm the man here. Why am I afraid of a woman?" He didn't argue, which she took as a yes. The host smiled. "Mr. Miller, Mrs. Lynn, we have a second round. Are you interested?" Brooke was on a roll. "Of course. With my babe here, everyone else might as well go home." The host chuckled. "Excellent. This round is called Bite the Apple." The host explained the simple rules. An apple would be suspended between each couple, and the first pair to eat it without using their hands would win. It was a cliché party game, something Brooke had seen 100 times. This was her element. She could do this with her eyes closed. A few more couples joined for the simpler second round. "This one's my specialty," Brooke whispered to Jason, winking conspiratorially. "Just watch me, babe." She was eager to show off for him. Jason, however, was nonchalant. "Let's just have fun. The result doesn't matter." He truly didn't care about winning. He just wanted her to be happy. His old coach used to say, "Friendship first, competition second." Besides, they were guests in this country. It was only polite to let the locals win around. But Brooke pouted. "No, I have to win this for you. I want that giant stuffed rabbit. Geese on sight. If you want a toy, I'll buy you one later." "No, I want the one we win." A prize was much more fun than something you just bought. He didn't want to argue, so he relented. Fine. You're the boss. We'll do our best." The host shouted, "Begin." Brooke, desperate to win and worried about her pregnancy, lunged for the apple. She missed, stumbling forward right into Jason's arms, their lips meeting in a clumsy, accidental kiss. The host laughed. The DJ, with impeccable timing, started blasting a cheesy pop song about apples. The crowd roared, some people shouting for an encore. Brooke's face turned scarlet. She loved kissing Jason, but this was mortifying. So much for showing off. She froze, unsure what to do. Jason, however, reacted instantly. Seeing the situation, he wrapped his arms around her and kissed her back, deeply and passionately. After a long moment, he pulled back just enough to whisper in her ear, his voice a low, dramatic thrum. "Don't be afraid. I'll always be with you." It was a line he'd learned from a soap opera in college. He'd even practiced it in the mirror once, much to the disgust of his roommates. He knew it'd come in handy someday. Those idiots were probably still single. It worked like a charm. Brooke's eyes welled up with tears. With those words, she would do anything for him. "Babe," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion as she squeezed his hand. This was the happiest moment of her life. She was the luckiest woman in the world. The crowd went wild, applauding and cheering. Someone shouted, "True, eternal love." Everyone forgot it was a competition. The other couples, however, were less impressed. The girlfriends glared at their boyfriends. "See? That's how you do it. Why are you all so useless?" The boyfriends glared at Jason, their eyes shooting daggers. "You had to show off, didn't you? You're making all of us look bad. Jason ignored them. Since he'd already started, he might as well enjoy it. He finally released Brooke. She was weak in knees, her heart pounding. The kiss had lasted for nearly 2 minutes. His lung capacity is incredible, she thought, her mind replaying a different, more intimate memory. A blush crept up her cheeks. When had she become so shameless? She felt dizzy, slumping against him. Jason held her, offering an apologetic gesture to the crowd. Sorry for the delay, everyone. We forfeit this round. We lose. The other boyfriends looked ready to kill him, but the host shook his head emphatically. No, you must continue. We'll count this round as a win for you. Everyone saw how in love you are. Our show is all about boosting ratings, and that kiss just sent our numbers through the roof. Jason's brain short-circuited. Show? What show are you talking about? He assumed it was some corporate promo video, something for internal viewing only. He couldn't be that unlucky. The host beamed proudly. A television show. We've invested a lot of money into this season, so it has to be a hit. You have to keep playing, or the show can't go on. Jason's blood ran cold. A TV show? If Clara saw this, he was a dead man. Your show. Not many people watch it, right? He asked, a desperate flicker of hope in his voice. No. Our past episodes have millions of views, both domestic and international. And this season is hotter than ever. Who knows? The host grinned mischievously. You might just become famous. The ultimate romantic hero. Exciting, right? Jason felt his heart shatter. Exciting? The only thing exciting would be the headline. NYC man dismembered by multiple girlfriends. He never should have agreed to this. Brooke noticed his pale face. Babe, what's wrong? Are you not feeling well? Jason swallowed his panic. The damage was done. There was no turning back. He forced a smile. I'm fine. Just ate too much. It wasn't his fault. They were the ones who insisted on trapping him. He was the victim here. Brooke, ever trusting, bought it. Then let's listen to the host and finish the game, okay? So many people love them as a couple. She savored the feeling. This was what normal couples did, and it was a first for her and Jason. Come on, babe. Let's not disappoint the nice man. Jason couldn't refuse her. He could only pray that Clara didn't watch TV. But then he remembered it wasn't just Clara at the villa. There were at least 3 other women who could light the fuse on this particular powder keg. Back at the villa, Vivien and Kinsey were each holding a crying baby. It was getting late. Where was Jason? The twins missed him, and no one else could calm them. Kinsey, do you think something happened to Brooke? Vivien asked, her mind jumping to the worst-case scenario. Kinsey shook her head. No, she's always been healthy. I'm sure she's fine, but she was also wondering where they were. Vivien sighed. Then what are we going to do about these two? She turned on the television, hoping to distract the babies with a cartoon. The first thing that appeared on the screen was Jason, locked in a passionate 2-minute-long kiss with Brooklyn. Vivien froze, her knuckles turning white. She felt a possessive rage surge through her. Jason was supposed to be hers. She was the one he never got over. But now Clara had his children, and Brooke was carrying his baby. She hated herself for not being stronger. If she had gotten pregnant with his child, she would be the one on that screen. She would be the one he was kissing. Kinsey saw it too, a bitter taste filling her mouth. Just moments ago, she was worried about Brooke, and now this. Clearly, Brooke was having the time of her life. As if they understood, the baby started crying even louder. Vivien snapped back to reality, her face a grim mask. She turned off the TV without a word. She tried to calm herself, but the image was seared into her brain. I'm not feeling well, she said, handing her baby to Kinsey. I'm going to go lie down. Before Kinsey could ask, she hurried out of the room. She threw herself on her bed, her mind in turmoil. She closed her eyes, but all she could see was the kiss. She got up and chugged a bottle of ice water, but it did nothing to quench the fire in her heart. The desire to possess Jason, to have him all to herself, was overwhelming. The orphanage director had told her not to push him, to give him space. She had given him space, and what had it gotten her? He had married Clara, had children with Brooke. She was still standing in the same place, and he was getting farther and farther away. If she didn't do something, she would lose him forever. She wouldn't let that happen. She would get him back, no matter what it took. The games finally ended. Jason and Brooke, true to his word, won the grand prize. Brooke was ecstatic. She insisted on shopping for hours, and it was nearly midnight by the time Jason was driving her back to the villa. She'd been chattering excitedly to the stuffed rabbit on the drive, but within minutes, she was fast asleep in the passenger seat, exhausted from the day. Back at the villa, the grounds were dark and silent. Jason parked the car and looked over at her. A sliver of light from a lamppost illuminated her delicate features. Curled up in the seat, she looked like a doll. Not wanting to wake her, he gently lifted her out of the car. She stirred, her arms tightening around his neck as she mumbled in her sleep. "Don't leave me. If you're not here, what will happen to me and the baby? I'll go crazy." Even in her dreams, she was anxious. Her brow was furrowed, a tear escaping from the corner of her eye. Jason's heart ached. He remembered when he first met her, how proud and full of life she was. Now, she was this fragile thing, clinging to him. Did I do this to her? He wondered. He shook the thought away, muttering to himself, "If this were ancient times, I'd just marry all of them. Clara would be the first wife, Brooke the second." So much simpler. Lost in his ridiculous fantasy, he carried her to her room. It was a sea of pink, pink bed, pink sheets, pink everything. A room fit for a teenager. He gently laid her on the bed and pulled the covers over her. As he turned to leave, he felt a tug on his shirt. Her eyes were still closed, but she was gripping his sleeve tightly. "Babe, don't go. I'm scared." He sighed, leaned down, and kissed her forehead. "Don't worry. I'm not going anywhere. I won't leave you or the baby." Her grip loosened, and he slipped out of the room. As he quietly closed the door, he bumped right into someone. He looked up. It was Vivien. She was leaning against the doorframe, her arms crossed, an expression of profound sadness on her face. Her cool eyes were fixed on him, and the silent pressure was suffocating. "I'm not a thief," he told himself. "What am I so afraid of?" "You're still up?" he asked, his smile feeling forced. Vivien's lips twitched. "I couldn't sleep. You must be tired. I made some food if you're hungry." Relieved that she wasn't angry, Jason rubbed his stomach. "Actually, I'm starving. We were so busy today, I barely ate." She nodded. "I'm hungry too. Let's eat together." She led the way to the dining room. From where he sat, he could see her slender back as she got out the dishes. She was wearing a simple black dress that highlighted her delicate waist. She looked so thin, so fragile. It made him want to protect her. Whoever marries Vivien, he thought, is the luckiest bastard on earth. She brought over 2 plates of food and a large bowl of rice. He was so hungry he devoured the first bowl in minutes. Vivien just watched him, not eating. He felt self-conscious and stopped. "Is there something on my face?" She shook her head. "Were the babies a lot of trouble today?" he asked, changing the subject. "They cried for a while when they couldn't find you," she said quietly. "But they're asleep now. Clara's asleep too." Hearing that, Jason felt a wave of relief. If Clara was asleep, she hadn't seen anything. A fight had been avoided. "I'll have another bowl," he said, his appetite returning. "I'll get it," Vivien said, taking his bowl and refilling it. As he was about to dig in, she spoke again, her voice flat. "I saw you and Brooke on TV today." Jason choked, spraying a mouthful of rice across the table. "How did you see that?" he sputtered. "If she saw it, did Clara?" "I just happened to see it," she said calmly. He leaned forward, glancing nervously toward Clara's room. "Did Clara see?" Vivien shook her head, a flicker of pain in her eyes. "No, I didn't tell her. Thank God." "Vivien, thank you," he said, his voice filled with genuine gratitude. Her expression didn't change. She didn't want his thanks. She wanted his love. A bitter smile touched her lips. "I also made some chicken soup. Would you like a bowl?" "Yes, please," he said, not thinking twice. Vivien went to the kitchen. She ladled a bowl of soup, her hand clenching around a small packet of powder. Should I do it? She wondered. If he drank it, he would lose control. Everyone was asleep. She could finally have him. By morning, it would be a done deal. But would he hate her for it? "What are you thinking about?" Jason's voice startled her. She flinched, slipped the packet back in her pocket, and brought the soup to the table. "Nothing." He drank it down in one go. "So, how did the checkup go?" she asked softly. At the question, the exhaustion returned to Jason's face. "The doctor said the baby isn't very active, that it's not good." All day he had put on a brave face for Brooke, but inside he was terrified. He couldn't talk to Clara about it. She was too intense. And he couldn't talk to Brooke. She was too fragile. He looked at Vivien. She was the only one he could be completely honest with. She had always been his safe harbor. "Honestly, I don't know what to do. I feel so helpless. I'm so tired." Seeing his pain, Vivien's heart softened. "It's going to be okay," she said gently. "You're the only one who really understands me," he said, his voice raw with sincerity. A warmth spread through Vivien's chest. She took the packet from her pocket and dropped it into the trash can under the table. "Would you like a glass of fruit wine?" she asked, her voice soothing. He needed to relax. He hesitated, but the exhaustion was overwhelming. He nodded. She poured them each a glass. The wine was sweet and smooth. Before they knew it, they had finished several glasses. Tipsy, Jason leaned back on the sofa. "You know, Vivien, it's hard being a man. You have to swallow all your pain and pretend to be happy." She sat beside him, her voice a gentle murmur. "Jason, I will always be here for you. I would do anything for you. The light from above cast a maternal glow on her face. He thought about their childhood in the orphanage, how she had always protected him like an older sister. She was the only one who had ever seen him at his most vulnerable. Vivien, he said, his eyes filled with emotion, I am so grateful for you. She understood. They had known each other for so long. They could communicate without words. You're different from the others, he continued. With you, I can finally rest. A wave of hope washed over her. Yes, she was different. They had a history the others could never touch. She gently placed a blanket over him. We've been through so much together, Jason. You know this will pass. He said nothing, just rubbed his temples. She moved closer, her voice barely a whisper. I want to be with you. I don't care about being your wife. I don't care about Clara or Brooke. I just don't want to lose you. We can start over, Jason. All you have to do is say the word. He was silent. The alcohol hadn't clouded his judgment completely. He knew what she was offering, but he was already in over his head. Adding Vivien to the mix would be a death sentence. He pretended to check his watch, then realized he wasn't wearing one. He laughed awkwardly. It's getting late. You should get some rest. I'm too tired to think straight tonight. He threw off the blanket and stood up, but the wine hit him harder than he expected. He staggered, losing his balance. Jason, Vivien cried, jumping up to steady him, but she was too frail. She couldn't hold his weight, and they both tumbled onto the sofa with her landing on top of him. In the dim light, her cheeks were flushed, her eyes hazy with wine and desire. Her soft chest was pressed against his, her sweet scent filling his senses. His breath caught in his throat. The air crackled with a dangerous energy, just waiting for a spark. The crash of their fall echoed through the quiet villa, startling Clara from a light sleep. As a new mother, she was attuned to every sound. She checked on the twins. They were sleeping soundly, their little backsides pressed together. A wave of contentment washed over her. Then she heard it again, a muffled groan that sounded distinctly like Jason. He's back. What's he doing out there? She slipped out of bed, threw on a robe, and stepped out of the bedroom. The living area was dark, illuminated only by the faint light spilling from her room. Jason, is that you? She called out softly, not wanting to wake the babies. Hearing her voice, Jason felt a cold sweat break out on his skin. There was nowhere to hide. What was he going to do? In a moment of sheer panic, he rolled, pulling Vivien with him, and squeezed into the narrow space beneath the sofa. She'll never look down here, he thought desperately. Vivien was just as terrified, her body pressed tightly against his. She held her breath. Clara's slippers shuffled across the floor. Jason, where are you hiding? The babies are crying. A trick, Jason thought. She thinks I'm that easy to fool. My is 140 voor goed sak. The footsteps drew closer. Vivien tensed, her body rigid against his. Jason, what are you doing on the sofa? It's time to feed the babies. Her voice was right beside them. Through a sliver of light, he could see her slippered feet. Vivien almost cried out. Jason clamped a hand over her mouth. This was a test of endurance. After a moment, Clara sighed. Did I imagine it? Maybe he's already back in his room. Her footsteps retreated. Jason let out a shaky breath and removed his hand from Vivien's mouth. Then he became acutely aware of their position. His other hand was resting on her chest, which was rising and falling rapidly. One of his legs was pressed against a very sensitive part of her. Her cheeks were flushed, her lips parted as she breathed heavily. This was exactly what she wanted. Jason, she whispered, her voice pleading. Don't go. I missed this so much. He hesitated. She wrapped her arms around his neck, her body pliant against his. Am I not as beautiful as them? She murmured, her voice full of sorrow. He looked at her exquisite face, her shimmering eyes, her trembling lips. No, you're beautiful, but we missed our chance. I don't care, she cried, and then she kissed him. It was a desperate, hungry kiss, a torrent of pent-up emotion. He was stunned, his mind blank. A small part of him, the last bastion of his sanity, screamed at him to stop. He tried to push her away, but then he tasted salt. Tears were streaming down her face. His heart clenched. He had never wanted to make her cry. Jason, please don't leave me, she sobbed. He stopped resisting and let her hold him. Just for a moment, he told himself. It's just a hug. Suddenly, the hair on the back of his neck stood up. He felt a chilling presence, the unnerving sensation of being watched. He froze, then instantly pushed Vivien away and scrambled to his feet. He turned, and there, standing in the dim light, was Clara, her face a mask of glacial fury. Honey, you're up, he said, his voice cracking. It's late. You should be resting. Clara didn't say a word. Her cold eyes shifted from him to Vivien, who was now sitting up, her face flushed with shame. There was nothing to say. The scene spoke for itself. Clara advanced on them, an aura of ice-cold rage emanating from her. "What were you doing?" she demanded, her voice dangerously low. She had known something was wrong. Her trick had worked better than she'd expected. Jason's mind raced. How would he explain this? Vivien stood up, her voice steady. "It wasn't his fault. It was me. I came onto him. If you're going to punish someone, punish me." "Is that so?" Clara's gaze never left Jason's face. He nodded, then shook his head. He couldn't let Vivien take all the blame. He had to think of something. "It was me," Vivien insisted. Clara finally glanced at her. "Was I talking to you?" Jason finally found his voice. "Honey, I tripped. Vivien tried to help me, and we both fell. It was an accident. A total collision." "A collision?" Clara's expression flickered, but then her eyes narrowed, zeroing in on a smear of pink lipstick at the corner of his mouth. Her own possessiveness, a fierce, primal thing, rose up in her. "A lucky collision," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Looks like it created some sparks. Do you need a fire extinguisher?" Vivien knew she had to say something. "Clara, it's all my fault. I can't forget him. I've tried, but I can't. I love him." The confession tumbled out, raw and unfiltered. She looked at Jason, her eyes shining with tears. "You can blame me, hit me, whatever you want. Just don't blame him. He's innocent." Clara looked at Vivien. She thought of all the help Vivien had given her with the babies, her gentle nature, her genuine affection for the children. "This has nothing to do with you," she said finally. "Go back to your room." Vivien hesitated, looking worriedly at Jason. "I said go." Clara's voice was like a whip crack. Jason gave Vivien a slight nod, urging her to leave. She cast one last lingering look at him, then turned and walked away. The silence that remained was heavy and suffocating. "Honey," Jason began, trying to sound cheerful. "It's cold out here. Let's go back to bed." Clara's cold expression didn't change. She walked toward him, her presence overwhelming. "Honey, let's talk about this calmly," he said, backing away. "Think of the babies. And besides, murdering your husband is a serious crime, even here." She stopped in front of him, her eyes fixed on a lipstick mark. "I know about you and Brooke yesterday. Today it's Vivien. Your mouth seems to be very busy. Maybe I should sew it shut, give it a rest. I wouldn't want it to get tired." Clara's face was grim as she advanced, her presence radiating an overwhelming pressure. Jason stood his ground, his heart pounding. A man had to stand firm. "Honey," he tried again with a weak, playful grin. She stopped in front of him, her eyes drilling into his. "The thing I use for my meals is off limits," he said, trying to joke his way out of it. It wasn't working. He braced himself. Might as well have kissed her a few more times if I was going to get executed for it anyway. Clara raised her hand. Jason squeezed his eyes shut. "Just be gentle, honey," he mumbled. "Don't hurt your beautiful hand." The slap never came. Instead, he felt something rough and damp scrub at his lips. It smelled weird. He opened his eyes. She was wiping his mouth with a dish rag. He nearly gagged. "Dirty things," she said, her voice dripping with disgust, "should be cleaned with even dirtier things." She tossed the rag into the trash. "Jason, have you forgotten your promise to me?" He remembered, of course. But he couldn't just be cruel to the other women. "Honey, I was just trying to spare her feelings." "And what about my feelings?" she shot back. Just then, a cry came from the bedroom. The twins. It was the most beautiful sound Jason had ever heard. "The babies are crying," he announced, practically sprinting from the room. He found them wailing on the bed. He scooped them up, his voice a soothing murmur. "What's wrong, Liliana? Daddy's here." They quieted instantly, gnawing on their fists. Clara appeared in the doorway, her face unreadable. She watched as he gently rocked them, his eyes filled with adoration. Her anger warred with a confusing tangle of other emotions. She hated the other women around him, but she couldn't deny the beautiful scene in front of her. "Honey, they're hungry," Jason said, oblivious to her inner turmoil. Clara came and sat on the edge of the bed, a blush creeping up her cheeks. She still wasn't used to breastfeeding in front of him. She glanced at him. He was staring at her with wide, innocent eyes. "You have to leave," she hissed. How was she supposed to feed them with him watching? "But they'll cry if I leave," he argued, a picture of righteous concern. Left with no choice, she turned her back to him and began to feed one of the babies. Jason watched, mesmerized. In that moment, with the soft light on her face and her gaze fixed on their child, she was breathtaking. He felt a familiar heat rise in him. "So good," he murmured, not sure if he was talking about the baby or her. "What? The baby? Looks so happy eating," he stammered. She turned and caught him staring at her chest. Her face flushed a deeper red. What are you looking at? Haven't you seen it before? A roguish grin spread across his face. Can't blame my eyes for appreciating beauty. Clara just rolled her eyes. Are you jealous? You want some too? It was a joke, but he found himself actually considering it. He was curious, but that would be too shameless, wouldn't it? I've never tried it, he admitted, leaning closer. Get away from me. There are a lot of things you haven't tried, she snapped, handing him the now-sated baby. She then used a breast pump to fill 2 bottles. Put these in the fridge for later. The twins were now fast asleep. Jason laid them back on the bed and stared at the bottles. That's a lot. You're very productive. Clara blushed. Don't change the subject. We're not done talking about you and Vivien. His heart sank. He thought he was in the clear. He launched into another round of groveling apologies and declarations of love. Honey, it was an accident. You're the only one for me. He wrapped his arms around her shoulders. Come on, don't be mad. Think of her babies. She finally sighed, her anger dissipating. If there's a next time, she warned, I don't care if you're Jason or the father of my children. I will chop off your legs. He readily agreed, making a ridiculous oath about being reborn as a turtle. She almost smiled. Go put the milk in the fridge, she ordered. He gladly escaped to the dining room. He opened the refrigerator and saw several other bottles already inside. What a waste if this goes bad, he thought. He remembered reading that some emperors used to drink milk from wet nurses. Overcome with curiosity, he unscrewed a bottle and sniffed. It smelled sweeter than regular milk. He glanced around. No one was watching. Just one sip. He was still debating when Clara came up behind him. What are you doing? Startled, he jumped, and the open bottle tipped, splashing milk all over his face and into his mouth. It was warm and sweet. Clara burst out laughing. You were stealing the baby's milk? Were you that hungry? He grinned, wiping his mouth with his sleeve. My wife is amazing. Even her milk is sweeter than wine. Clara's face turned pink. Nonsense. Clara's face went cold, her sharp eyes fixing on him. I haven't even asked you yet. You were out with Brooklyn all day and came back this late. Didn't she feed you? Though Clara hadn't seen the TV show, she could imagine it. Brooklyn wasn't the type to have a quiet day out. They had undoubtedly eaten and played to their heart's content. Did Brooke not fill you up? You have to sneak into my territory to steal milk. At the mention of Brooke, Clara's expression soured again. Jason chuckled nervously. No, I wouldn't dare. I never do anything without my wife's permission. I'm the world's most obedient husband. Wife first, baby second, Jason third. He rattled off the platitudes easily. He had a whole library of them ready for moments like this. Sure enough, Clara's expression softened. She was secretly pleased. He was stealing her milk, but he was denying it. Stealing milk was a sign of love, wasn't it? Therefore, Jason loved her. A sly smile touched her lips. She stepped closer, her chest brushing against his. If you really want some, why not get fresh? Jason's breath caught, his mind going completely blank. His internal CPU was overheating. Was she suggesting what he thought she was suggesting? Was this a trick? Honey, that's not appropriate. We're a respectable married couple, he stammered, though his eyes darted downward. He had to admit the sight was compelling. He swallowed hard, tried to regain his composure. A good man's ambition shouldn't be derailed by temptation. We should save it for the babies, he said, his voice straining with false nobility. As their father, I can't bully the weak. Oh, really? Clara purred, yanking his head down and pressing it against her breast. Let's see about that. He was drowning in a sea of warmth and fragrance. It was over. No man could resist this. Let the waves crash over me, he thought. Half an hour later, he was lying in bed, completely satisfied. Honey, he murmured, when can we? You know, a man had needs. Clara glared at him. What did you do before you had a woman? It's only been a few weeks, and you're already desperate. What can I say? He grinned. Once you've had steak, you don't want to go back to salad. Besides, my wife is too beautiful for any man to resist. And I'm not a eunuch. That reminds me, she said sweetly. Next time you make me angry, maybe I'll just have you castrated. I've always wondered, would that get rid of a man's urges? Good heavens, this woman was a sadist. You wouldn't dare, he said, trying to sound confident. You love me too much. If you castrated me, you'd be the one who suffers the most. Clara blushed, but didn't reply. He had a point. Just remember not to make me angry, she said. After a moment, she relented. Dr. Luo said that once my confinement period is over, we can work on removing the cryotoxin. By the time the babies are 100 days old, it should be gone, and we can be together. She gave him a pointed look. So be patient. It's not much longer. We'll have a proper celebration for their 100-day milestone. Jason agreed, but then another thought occurred to him. He was still worried about what the doctor had said about Brooke's baby. Honey, Do you know where Dr. Luo is? The doctor at the clinic said Brooke's baby wasn't very active and recommended we see a specialist. I was thinking Dr. Luo is the best there is. I'm honestly a little worried. His tone was serious, stripped of its usual playfulness. Clara considered for a moment, then nodded. With that settled, Jason quickly fell asleep. He was exhausted. Clara, however, was wide awake. She watched him sleep, then snuggled closer, resting her head on his arm and listening to the steady beat of his heart. It was a perfect, peaceful moment. If only it could last forever. She had once thought all she needed from him was a child, but now she wanted all of him. Had she become one of those foolish women she used to despise, the ones who let love ruin them? Meanwhile, Vivien was also lying awake. She had come so close to drugging Jason, to taking what she felt was rightfully hers. Now she regretted her hesitation. She had confessed her love, and he had pushed her away. Unable to sleep, she went to the backyard, a bottle of wine in her hand. She sat under the rose trellis, the sweet fragrance doing nothing to lift her spirits. As she stared up at the stars, she heard voices coming from a dark corner of the garden. Curious, she crept closer. It was Annie Lan and Uncle Jiang, talking to a dark figure she didn't recognize, the handler. Has Jason been here for a while? The handler asked, his voice sharp. Vivien froze. Why are they talking about Jason? He and Clara have been living here for some time now. Yes, Annie Lan said respectfully. The handler said nothing. Perhaps we should observe a little longer, Uncle Jiang suggested. Isn't it a bit soon? The plan cannot be changed, the handler said, his voice cold and menacing. You know the organization's rules. Annie Lan and Uncle Jiang nodded meekly. Vivien's blood ran cold. Annie Lan and Uncle Jiang were high-ranking members of Echelon. For them to be so deferential, the handler must be at the very top. What did you want of Jason? We've been preparing for this for a long time. Keep a close watch on him and report back to me, the handler commanded. Vivien tried to move closer to get a better look at his face. She tripped on a loose stone, letting out a small gasp. Who's there? The handler snapped. Vivien ducked behind the roses, her heart pounding. Probably just a stray cat, Annie Lan said. Go and check, the handler ordered. If someone was listening, kill them. Vivien was terrified. She had to get back to the villa to warn Jason. She tried to run, but in her drunken, panicked state, she stumbled and fell. A hand clamped over her mouth. She struggled, thinking she'd been caught. Don't make a sound, a familiar voice whispered in her ear. She looked up. It was Bianca. Annie Lan's footsteps grew closer. Her long shadow stretched across the ground, inching toward them like a specter of death. Vivien's breath hitched. She wondered if Annie Lan would show them mercy or simply execute them on the spot. She squeezed Bianca's hand, her own trembling. Bianca was calmer. Years in the organization had honed her nerves. She picked up a small stone and tossed it out of the greenhouse window, then played a cat meowing sound from her phone. It really is a cat, they heard Annie Lan say from outside. I'll have someone round them all up tomorrow, Uncle John grumbled. The footsteps faded as they walked away. Vivien let out a shaky breath. Are they gone? She whispered. Bianca shook her head, signaling for silence. She peeked out, then gestured for Vivien to follow. Let's go. Now. They had to get back before Annie Lan and the others realized they'd been tricked. But just as they were about to make a run for it, a voice cut through the darkness. I knew you were here. It was Annie Lan. She stepped out from behind a row of bushes. I should have known it was you, Bianca. Did you really think those little tricks would work on me? She had trained Bianca, after all. She had simply played along, letting Bianca lead her right to them. Annie Lan, we were just having a drink, Bianca said, trying to sound casual. We didn't see anything. You can go, Annie Lan said, her eyes fixed on Vivien. She stays. Bianca hesitated. If she left, Vivien would be as good as dead. She could feel Vivien's hand shaking in hers. Let her go, Annie Lan. She didn't mean to overhear anything. This has nothing to do with you, Vivien said, pulling her hand away. You should go. Annie Lan looked conflicted, but then a voice crackled in her earpiece. Take them both. It was the handler. With a heavy heart, Annie Lan pulled out a tranquilizer gun and shot them both. They crumpled to the ground. Got them? Uncle Jiang asked, appearing at her side. Annie Lan nodded, her expression grim. Do we really have to turn them over? We watched Bianca grow up. We don't have a choice, he said. We can't defy a direct order. Annie Lan had an idea. They would hide the two women in a secret basement they knew of, buy them some time. She went to Vivien's room and forged a farewell letter, leaving it on the table. Jason, now that you and Clara are safe, there is nothing left for me here. I am leaving. Do not look for me. I wish you both happiness. Forgive me for leaving without saying goodbye. Then, she and Uncle Jiang carried the unconscious women to a car and drove away. What they didn't know was that another member of Echelon was watching from the shadows, recording their every move. The next morning, Jason woke up early, still worried about Brooke's baby. He went to find Kinsey to ask her to contact Dr. Luo, but she was nowhere to be found. He called her. "Where are you?" he asked when she finally picked up. "Where are you?" she cried, her voice frantic. "You need to get to Vivien's room. She's gone." Gone? That didn't make any sense. He hung up and rushed to Vivien's room. The bed was neatly made, as if it hadn't been slept in. "I've looked everywhere," Kinsey said, distraught. "I think something's happened to her." Then Jason saw the letter on the table. It was addressed to him. He read it, his heart sinking. "What does it say?" Kinsey asked. She read it over his shoulder, her expression baffled. Why would she leave like that? Just then, Brooke shuffled in, rubbing the sleep from her eyes. "What's all the noise about?" She saw Jason, and her face lit up. "Babe," she chirped, throwing herself into his arms. Jason gently pushed her away. "Brooke, Vivien's gone." Kinsey handed her the letter. Brooke read it and snorted. "This is a fake." "What do you mean?" Kinsey asked. "That's her handwriting. Think about it," Brooke said, surprisingly astute. "She loves Babe too much to just leave him." She sighed. "I know I would never leave. You'd have to drag me away." Brooke's logic was sound. Jason tried calling Vivien's phone, but it went straight to voicemail. He called Sprite. "Bro, you guys having fun without me?" Sprite answered cheerfully. "Sprite, have you seen Vivien? Is she back at the orphanage?" "You're always thinking about Vivien," Sprite grumbled. "No, she's not here. She never came back to the country. Speaking of which, when are you guys coming home? Things are a mess over here."